Joe Rogan Podcast, check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan Podcast by night, all day.
That sound is the sweet and sultry sound of Mike Baker lighting a cigar.
Hey now.
Good to see you, buddy. What's happening?
Good to be seen. Good to be seen. Now, you know, not much going on in these times of ours.
I'm very excited to talk to you because I had a guy on, Jamie Metzel yesterday, a scientist who scared the shit out of me, talking about China. He's talking about China. We were talking about China amassing naval power, China's taking over tech companies, and how huge they're getting and how much influence they have over their people as opposed to the way we do it.
Well, he's not wrong.
No.
He's not, yeah, I can't spot the lie in what you just said, but I mean, look, there's so much we can talk about, but if you think about it, just in the past handful of months, there was this SolarWinds hack, right, by the Russians. So the Russians go in, they hack into a company called SolarWinds. That is an IT management software company that happens to be fairly deep into government organizations, agencies, Treasury, and a variety of others throughout the U.S. government. And they're also into parts of the intel community, Defense Department, and a lot of commercial sectors. So anyway, the Russians figure this out. Now, around about December or January, Microsoft, identified this as a problem. And I think it was the head of Microsoft said, this looks like the most sophisticated attack we've ever seen. So this is December, January timeframe. And they're still trying to figure out the depth of this hack by Russians. At the same time, and going back months and months and months and months before, the Chinese had been engaged in a more sophisticated attack that while everyone is focused on what's going on and so fully aware that we got problems, right, from nation states out there who don't like us, everybody's talking about SolarWinds, and now it's they've just now released information about the Chinese attack against Microsoft Exchange servers, running the Exchange email systems, and this thing is enormous. And so the Chinese, I mean, we've been so focused for 4 years on the Russians, and they're out there to cause us all sorts of problems. So we should be focused on them. But it's China that's the biggest problem. And so this guy is absolutely right. Jamie's right.
It was terrifying.
Yeah.
Listen to what he was talking about, the way he was explaining how they have this plan. I think he said 2049 to be the global superpower of the world and essentially take the place of what America used to be.
Yeah,
they do it their way.
And they do it their way, which means we're going to bypass all the costs and the heavy lift of research and development over the years, and we're just going to steal everything. Yeah. And they've been doing it for decades. So people think, oh, China, it's a problem. It's a problem. We've talked about this before. This idea that perhaps this is just something relatively new or it's popped up during the previous administration of Trump. And honest to God's truth is it's been going on for decades. And they decided that that's how they're going to get to the top of the food chain, is by stealing shit, because it's a lot easier to hoover up everything and then reverse engineer it. And the technology has made it even easier, right? It used to be old school. They'd go out and recruit somebody. They'd find some Chinese American working for a company here in the States. They'd appeal to sort of, you got to help the motherland, and they would. And that was the old school way of doing it. But, cyber theft it's incredible what they're able to do. And this latest attack, while they're still trying to sort out the mess, right?
So when they do this, so if they get into this email server, are they targeting anything specific? Is there specific companies? Are they just like throwing a net out there and seeing what they catch?
Yes, is the answer to both of those. It looks like what happened here was that their initial point of attack, or the initial focus, was intelligence, right? So then it branched out, and it branched out very, very quickly, right, to hit everything, small companies, medium-sized companies. And that's kind of the MO for the Chinese. The Chinese regime, right, their intel operations, they've got this long vision. And they've also got the resources, and they've got the desire to hoover up everything and then sort it out later. We take, as a country, we take a very sort of targeted approach. right? We say, okay, this is a piece of information that's a priority tasking for the U.S., for our national security. We're going to go out. We're going to figure out who has access to it. We're going to develop a very sort of surgical strike to figure out how do we get to somebody who's got this piece of information. That's typically how we or some of our allies would operate. The Russians, the Chinese have always had a different approach. I mean, the Russians is less elegant. The Russians are just throw shit at the wall and see what sticks, right? But the Chinese, they've got this long view, and they've also got this ability. And so in this particular attack that they're still trying to assess, that was perpetrated by, Chinese state-sponsored hackers based in China. They're just going to take everything, and then they'll sift through it. They'll figure out what they got. A lot of it's going to be just, chafe, not of interest, but they're going to find a lot of gold in there too. And they're willing to do that because they've got the patience to do it. They'll develop a target. They'll develop a potential recruit for years and years and years. Or they'll infiltrate a society or an organization, right? They'll put a student out here who's actually working for the PLA, for their intel operations, and they'll put him out as an undergrad. And then they'll go to school, and they'll get good grades, and they'll go to a grad school, and then they'll get a job, and they'll get another job, and then 30 years down the line, it may pay off. But they're willing to make that investment. So
we should be scared.
Well, we shouldn't be scared, but we should, yeah. I don't think we should be scared, but I think what we should be is pragmatic and understand why. For instance, I mean, there was a lot of, hue and cry over the past 4 years. I can't believe I just said hue and cry.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't know. It's just like, it's old-timey.
Is it?
Yeah. Oh,
hue
by golly.
What is
Look
hue
at me.
and cry?
It's like the cat's pajamas. It's 4 years of Trump and sort of his antagonistic relationship with China, and people were all wringing their hands in Washington, D.C., sort of the think tankers and the traditional pundits and the diplomats of the U.S., the long-term people. They're, oh, my God, we've got this adversarial relationship with China. Well, you know what? We better, right? So that's not a bad thing. So I'm hoping the current administration maintains to some degree, and we'll see what happens. They still haven't responded to the SolarWinds, to the Russian hack, right? They're talking about it. Now they're saying they're gonna engage in several clandestine retaliatory acts. Well, it's not that clandestine because they've announced that they're going to do it. And so, but I'm hoping that they will take serious action against the SolarWinds Russian act. But they've got to, with China, they've got to maintain this posture. We've got to make it clear and understood to the Chinese regime that we're not going to put up with this shit. They're going to keep doing it, but we got to make it painful for them.
So how do you make it painful?
Well, it's the old word sanctions. You got to go with the sanctions because there's not much else. Trade wars, I know everybody hates a trade war. Not everybody, but you've got to find a way, because the problem with cyber shenanigans is that there's no real clear definition, right? We know if a country fires a ballistic missile off, we know what the retaliatory act is. We know what an appropriate response is. In cyberspace, when you're talking about warfare, coming up with a definition is very difficult and hasn't been done yet. We've got Cyber Command, right? And we're still trying to sort out what are appropriate responses, because it can escalate quickly, right? Next thing you know, they could shut down our infrastructure, right?
Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about, supposedly what they did in India. Mm-hmm. So if you could explain that to people, they shut down the power grid in India, allegedly. They said they didn't do it, but apparently there was some sort of a warning about the power going out, right?
Yeah. They've done it. The Russians did it famously in Ukraine, right? Not that long ago. And China's ability to interfere in infrastructure here in the U.S. or in India or with our allies is because for years now they've been probing. There's been testing going on. We talk about it's a good example. We talk about how in the U.S. we have 3 grids, and I think people were stunned to find out that Texas has its own power grid. Well, yeah, but it's not so much. People were like, "Oh my God, look at Texas; they're terrible," because they wanted to make it a political thing, right? Yeah. They wanted to make it sound like the reason why it's so terrible is because it's Republicans and they want their own independence. Well, no, all 3 grids are fucked, right? The East and the West and the Texas grids are all cobbled together over the years. So it's a very it's like a patchwork quilt, And they were never built to withstand physical attacks. I mean, you could drive by any substation, right? You could get close enough to pee on it. And they certainly were never designed to withstand a cyber attack. So over the years, what goes on is essentially a mapping exercise, right? Where whether it's the Russians, whether it's the Chinese, whether it's the North Koreans using Chinese capabilities, whether it's the Iranians, whomever, they're in there probing and trying to understand the weaknesses, and they're drawing up a map. Now, the reason why they're doing that is to have a game plan, right? And I guarantee you, sitting on the desk somewhere not too far from, Xi's office is a playbook that says, if this thing escalates, here's what we're going to do. And if you think like it was bad in Texas, a couple of weeks ago when, the power was out, and it was bad, but think about that lasting for 8, 10, 12 weeks around the country, right? Power grid shut down. What happens? You can't transport shit, right? You can't get cash. Fuel doesn't get to the gas stations. Food doesn't get to the stores. There's, depending on the time of year, heat issues, obviously, water supplies. And that's where the next big battle is going to be fought, right? They're going to bring it to the homeland. And we will do the same thing, right? It's not like we're not doing it, because people always say when I say something like that, well, the U.S. does it too. I think, well, fuck yeah, the U.S. does it. We better hope we're prepared.
Does that frustrate you when people say that? Well, the U.S. does it too.
Yeah, it does in a sense, because, and this is where I think, now personal opinion comes into it. Look, I spent most of my adult life overseas, and I like to think that I've got a fairly pragmatic view on things. I do admit that obviously, look, I look at the U.S. and I like to think, and I have seen on occasions, we do a lot of things for the right reason. Sometimes we don't do it properly, right? We make mistakes. Of course we make mistakes. But we try to self-correct. I guarantee you, if we're talking about the major powers out there, if we're talking about China and us, if we're talking about the Chinese regime, I'm talking about, obviously, if we're talking about the Russians, the Iranians, the North Koreans, we better hope that we stay up there, right, and are able to exert influence and leverage and control at the top, right? Because if it's and again, maybe I'm wrong here, but the Chinese don't view anything in an altruistic manner. The Chinese regime, right? It's all about self-interest. And sometimes, I'll tell you what's frustrating, sometimes is we seem to be the only country out there that apologizes, right, for that sort of thing. And so when we act in our own best interest and we go, well, we're really sorry about that, we're kind of acting in our own best interest. Well, every other nation does it, and they don't give a fuck.
Yeah, but shouldn't we be the moral high ground for the world? I think we should. I think it's nice if we do all the same shit they do. We say, sorry.
Yeah.
As long as we do all the same shit.
I guess it doesn't cost anything to say sorry.
It's not a bad thing. It's
not a bad thing.
We're setting a tone.
Yeah, I guess that's true. As long as we're also then at the same time acting in our own best interest.
Yeah.
Because we have to be pragmatic. If we think that somehow, look at climate change. That's obviously it's back on the table. It's a big issue. It's a major policy direction. Hey, fine, great. Who doesn't want clean energy? But to act as if China's not the number one polluter out there is insane.
Yeah,
right?
that's where it gets weird. Right?
Yeah, it does. It gets a little weird.
Giant difference between the amount of particulates, the amount of pollution, the amount of CO2. I think they've tried hard to mitigate that over the last few years in particular. But you remember when they had the Beijing Olympics?
Yes.
And they had to shut everything down because the air quality was so bad that the athletes, it would actually be dangerous for the athletes to perform and to compete under those conditions.
Sorry, I'm lighting my cigar.
Light it up, baby. Don't worry about it. It's
I'm not allowed to smoke cigars in the house because I don't want to set a bad example for Scooter and Sluggo and Muggsy. But
well, I'm allowed to in the house, but I get yelled at by the kids.
Do you have air handlers in any part of your house?
No, I have a thing, one of those purifiers, those air things that suck things out.
Yeah,
and I have some spray that I bought on Amazon that's supposed to kill the spray.
Like Febreze.
Yeah, and in my office, I have a window thing. I open the windows and get the air out.
That's old school. That's good. Yeah, it works.
But I live with all women, man. It's all women in my fucking fucking house. It's always women in there. I like being a man every now and then.
We
I
got
put the fights on. I smoke a cigar. Put my feet up. I feel like a man again,
dude.
Mike Baker.
No, I know. Look, I got a different situation. Yeah, my wife is completely outnumbered, right? Even with the pets, except for we got a Siberian hamster as a female. We think.
I got a male
How do you
dog
know?
at least.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, how's he doing, Marshall?
He's awesome.
Marshall, right?
He's the best.
Yeah. Dogs. Oh my God, dogs are great. So yeah, the Chinese is
Not good.
I hate to. I think sometimes people say, quit kicking the Chinese in the ass, but the regime really does have a plan, as you pointed out. They would like to accelerate that plan to before 2049, and it's everything. It's the aggression in the South Pacific seas. It's their buildup of their military, particularly their navy. It's primarily the part that is most frustrating is the theft of intellectual property. And I mean, look, this hack that I just talked about earlier with Microsoft, with the exchange. We're getting screwed, right? So they're out there. We don't know the extent. We know it's huge. We don't know the extent yet of this attack. But do you think that's going to stop? Is Microsoft going to stop doing business in China?
No.
Absolutely not.
No.
Right? They're one of the few. Facebook is banned. You know.
Yeah.
You know what's not banned? Microsoft, right? LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
Bing, right? So
Who the fuck uses Bing?
I know Bing. I know. I didn't even know it was still in existence.
I have a
but-
Windows laptop. And it wants to pull up Bing sometimes. I'm like, what are you doing? Please
I know.
get out of here.
Bing. But it's at that point. Bing is it?
How bad is Bing? Is it bad? It's not bad.
Bada Bing.
It's just no one's using it, right? I'd use DuckDuckGo. That's what I like. Because DuckDuckGo gives me uncurated information. Whereas, like,
That's good.
You know, and it doesn't. DuckDuckGo doesn't save your information. It's not trying to like use your data, and it just gives you a search. Do you know what it is? Are you aware of it?
Shit, no. Look at me. I know how to do a couple of things on my laptop. One of them is send emails.
I've looked for things on Google and I couldn't find them page after page. I looked on DuckDuckGo and I find them instantly. DuckDuckGo does not censor or curate any of the information. It just tries to search out keywords that you're looking for. So, like, here's a perfect example.
How do you know it's not curated, though?
Well, the difference is the way I try to find things on Google and try to find things on DuckDuckGo. So this is a good example. There was a doctor in Florida who died immediately after the COVID vaccination. Okay. Whether it's causation or correlation or just random bad luck.
Bad luck of life, yeah.
This guy was in his 50s. He was relatively healthy as far as, you know, the article says. Takes COVID vaccination, dies. So I'm trying to find out what this is because somebody sent it to me, and then I Google it. I cannot find it. 2, 3, 4 pages in, can't find it. DuckDuckGo, first page, right away. And I'm like, well, something's happening. I think Google is trying to. They're you know, look. I think they're doing it for altruistic purposes. I think they think that they're being good citizens and good human beings, trying to encourage people to get vaccinated, and they want to discourage anti-vax propaganda. If you have 320 million people that get vaccinated, you're going to have 100, 200, 1,000, 2,000 horror stories. Yeah. That's just. Yeah. That's if you give 320 million people Tylenol, you're going to have 2,000 horror stories, right? Agreed?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I remember the Tylenol scare. I remember that from years
that
ago.
was different, though.
Yeah,
that was someone was poisoning.
Exactly, yeah.
But, I mean, if you just give them... I mean, Tylenol might not be the best example, but there's a lot of medication that if you give people... Some people, for whatever reason, like I'm not allergic to dogs, but my wife's allergic to dogs. You know, like I'm not. You know, some people, like my friend Brian, his mom, if she even licks a Brazil nut, she's dead.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, my wife's like that with hazelnuts.
I don't know what the fuck that is, but this is also the case with virtually anything that gets introduced to the human body. We vary so much biologically that if you have a wide swath of people, if you have an enormous number, 330 plus million, you're going to have a few horrible cases. Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean that people shouldn't get vaccinated. It doesn't mean people shouldn't eat Brazil nuts. It just means you should kind of have access to all the information. But we also should have unbiased, objective reporting of these things, and someone should state it that way. And I try to do that.
Is DuckDuckGo, is that spelled? Is it
Duck,
some funky
Duck,
spelling?
Go.
It's just actually
It's just
spelling
an app.
of duck.
It's an app
But I mean,
have on my
it's spelled
phone.
like duck. It's
yeah,
not. It's not like
no,
DUK
no.
or anything.
Right?
or,
No,
okay,
no,
all right.
stupid
Some
shit.
Clever thing.
It actually
yeah,
has a
yeah.
duck, and the logo's a duck.
Ducks are
but
adorable.
I like it.
We're getting a farm duck.
Ah,
Yeah, I know.
Their
I know.
eggs taste like shit, though. Have you ever had duck eggs?
No, I have had duck
I bought
eggs.
a
yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
dozen duck eggs. I gave them to my dog.
Where'd you get duck eggs from?
From
Just
some
local.
fucking weirdo market.
Yeah, farm to
They're
table
serving-
market.
Yeah, some weirdo market serving duck eggs. They suck. They're inferior. They're slimy.
We're just getting the duck for the farm duck for entertainment purposes.
But they leave like
Yeah.
like a film on your mouth.
Well, that's good to know that.
Yeah.
I'm about to tell my boys don't eat the
Yeah,
duck
like
eggs.
if you
but,
blew Donald
Yeah.
Duck, it'd probably be the same as eating a duck egg. I mean, look, it's a matter of
the
starving
only
to death.
person
or
who know
eating-
about that would be Daisy.
Quail eggs, though, are delicious. You ever had
Quail
quail
eggs are delicious. I had a quail egg last night.
They're
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
you?
I
Look
did.
At you fancy.
I know. I was
culinary
sitting on
guy.
top of some tuna tartare.
Oh, look
I know.
at tuna tartare.
I know.
Look
Well.
at you. Quail eggs. Did
Well,
it-
let me
did
just
it have-
adjust my ascot.
Did it have tiny sprinkling of parsley, all
Yeah,
minced
I
up?
believe there might have been foam on the plate too.
Ah,
Remember that was a big thing. Foam. We're gonna
Yeah.
put foam on. They don't put foam on my plate.
When people do that drizzle
Yeah.
of like
Yeah, that's-
balsamic.
Put a little bit. They go scrape the crisp.
Yeah.
No, it's. What was I going to say? Something about the Russians. You talk about the inability to get information. So and you talk about vaccines. So just something popped in my head. The Russians are at it again, right? So they did the SolarWinds. They know that retaliation is
You have a hard time with that word.
I do. Fucking hell.
What's the problem?
Retaliation. That's good.
It's
Yeah.
not. You're not even from. You're kind of from another country, but
Yeah.
it's England, right? You were born in England.
Yeah. Aluminium.
Yeah, that's a weird one. And
It's
tires with a Y.
Yeah, we want to put extra.
But you're
vowels
American,
in.
basically.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
How
yeah,
American
yeah.
are
First
you?
and foremost.
When were you born there? You lived there to how long?
My childhood, and then I moved to Australia.
What year did you move to America?
I did my final year of high school in America.
You can't be trusted.
Of course, I can be.
You're basically a
I'm a
foreigner.
very trustworthy person.
I feel like he's a foreign agent working for the CIA. Like, right, Jamie? Don't you feel this way?
That seems
I don't
harsh,
trust
Jamie.
you
Don't
anymore.
say
And I'm
don't
a
say
big
yes,
fan
Jamie.
of Australians.
Don't say, I know there's pressure to say yes.
Australians are basically. I feel like.
Australians are great.
Yeah.
Say nothing bad about Australians.
No,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
fucking love Australia.
Yeah, yeah.
If I was going to live anywhere outside the United States and Canada, I would live in Australia 100%.
Yeah, yeah.
Or New Zealand.
New Zealand's beautiful.
I've never even been to New Zealand,
Oh,
but I
God.
love New Zealanders.
I'm surprised at that. I mean, that's a beautiful
afraid I'll
place.
stay.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a long ways away.
They don't wear
people
masks.
say it's a great place to ride out the pandemic. It's no better than Idaho. Idaho's a great place to ride out the pandemic.
That's a good place, but it's a lot colder than New Zealand, motherfucker.
Yeah, no, that's not incorrect.
New Zealand looks like Hobbit land.
But the Russians. Let me tell you about what the Russians are up to now. Having just on the heels of the SolarWinds hack, which was very successful for them, and we still don't know how much intel they've pulled, and it's probably a great deal. But now you know what they're doing is they are engaged in a covert action campaign, basically a propaganda campaign against U.S. vaccines, Pfizer in particular.
Against them.
Yes, basically, what they're doing is they're using social media and they're seeding information about this Pfizer vaccine. I don't know if it's really legit, right? Because the Russians created their own vaccine. This is basically a monetary decision for them. They're trying to sell their Sputnik vaccine.
Is that what it's called?
It's called Sputnik. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. They never got over that space race thing. So they call it Sputnik. But they're trying to sell it to every country that'll buy it, right? And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to push down, or they're trying to create a lack of credibility in the Pfizer vaccine in particular, U.S.-made vaccines in general. And so they're seeding stories out there. In the old days, before the internet, what you would do is you would pay off journalists, and you would get stories planted in the newspapers. We used to, when people read newspapers, and that's how you would influence, to some degree, public opinion. You do other things. The Russians, they're very good at this, but that was one of the old days, the ways that you would do it. Now, as we know from the elections in the past, they're using that same methodology that they did during the elections to sort of like, put in this idea that our electoral system isn't credible, that there's problems with it. That's in their benefit. But they're also now doing it as far as the vaccines go. And primarily the driver there is a monetary issue, right? They just want to sell Sputnik. And
It really is called Sputnik.
it's really called Sputnik. It's the Sputnik. Yeah.
By the way, my friend who's a doctor took the Russian vaccine. He got a hold of the Russian vaccine a few months ago. He said 0 side effects. He said,
did he do it as an experiment, or did he do it because
No.
it was the only vaccine he could get?
He can get whatever he wants.
Yeah.
I think, well, he's a really fucking smart guy. He's one of the smartest people I know. And he just...
Well, you know a lot of smart people, so that's pretty impressive.
He's a genius, like a legitimate genius. And he decided that he wanted to take the Russian vaccine. I haven't talked to him about it in depth, but he said based on the research that he did on the vaccine, he said it's as legit as any of them. And he had access to it. Is it an mRNA virus, the same, or vaccine rather, is the same as Pfizer and Moderna?
Yeah, I think it's using the same
technology,
and the development of it was kind of the same, I think. But
they
raced it out there, right? So and what they don't have to do is it's like a lot of other things overseas. They don't necessarily have the FDA, breathing down the neck saying these are the sort of clinical trials you've got to go through. These are the sort of approvals you need. So part of the problem that they've been facing with Sputnik is like, you got this out here pretty quick, right? And so
they probably tested it on like Pussy Riot and political dissidents.
Oh God!
You know Pussy Riot, the band?
Yeah,
Do you wear them?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I got all their albums. No,
you don't?
No, I don't.
I have a T-shirt back in my LA house. I need to bring it over here. It's free Pussy Riot. I was wearing it on.
Haven't you sold the LA house?
I have 2 LA houses. I sold one of them.
Oh,
Listen
okay.
to you.
Yeah, look at me.
Guy.
Yeah, I'm big on the real estate market. Yeah,
he knows things.
Yeah.
He slipped up there, didn't he, Jamie?
Yeah.
He slipped up a little bit.
I didn't slip up. No. Sometimes you want to seed the fact that there's a piece of information floating out there. You put it in the sidebar conversation. But so anyway, so the Russians. Bottom line is, look, I don't want to sound like one of those people, but we just have to be pragmatic, right?
Yes.
And so to go back to that question you had, which I think is very interesting, is do I get frustrated by people saying, well, the U.S. does it too? Fuck yeah. It's a hostile world out there, whether you want to believe it or not, right? It's not a happy place out there, and there's a lot of people that would like to see us, at the bottom of the food chain. And so, all those people that say, well, the U.S. does it too. Yes, we do. And you know what? You're sitting here in the U.S. and you're using the benefits of being here in the U.S. So you probably want to, on occasion, just on occasion, maybe root for the home team. Right?
I think it's a natural thing that people do when one country is the most innovative, the most militarily successful. There's a lot of shit about the United States that angers people that even are a part of the United States.
Yeah.
In terms of our interventionist foreign policy. I mean, you got guys like Ron Paul who don't think we should be anywhere. Yeah. We should be controlling the United States. And you've got other people that think that we should go over there and fucking kick ass and conquer the whole globe and keep them on the straight and narrow the way allegedly we are. But the thing that bothers me more than anything about the United States currently is like there's a unnecessary divide that I see amongst us. There's a racial divide. There's a sexual orientation divide.
Yeah.
And I wonder how much of this is cultivated and how much of this is curated. Like when I see even weird things that don't make sense, like in Connecticut, 15 of their state titles, state records for women's athletics are held by 2 biological males who identify as females. Tell me, look, there's one thing. There's one thing to be tolerant and to be open-minded, but there's one thing to look at the whole picture and go, what better way across the board with everything to get people upset and frustrated and distracted and constantly engaged in arguments and battle than to seed social media with nonsense and constant propaganda and all. We know from the Internet Research Agency and Renee DeResta's work and all this that Russia in particular and probably China and Iran are constantly flooding social media with arguments against all sorts of policies and pro all sorts of other policies simultaneously, just to encourage argument. And you wonder, like, how much of the racial divide in America is real? For sure, there's real racists in America.
Of course,
But also, for sure, there's a lot of, like, malarkey.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shit that's like, most of us get along.
Yeah.
Most of us get along.
Most of it. I agree with you. No, Republicans and Democrats, most don't give a shit because they're worried about their daily fucking life.
They're worried about their children.
Yeah.
They're worried about the same thing. It's
Yeah.
like that old Sting song, "The Russians love their children too."
Yes,
Yeah, it's the remember
well
that?
done. You just quoted Sting.
I love Sting. I think what's happening is the world is so filled with information, and there's some players that are manipulating that information to keep people being antagonistic against each other. And the thing is, like, they're over there, and we think, oh, these motherfuckers are coming after us. They're doing this. They're hacking this. No one is together, right?
Yeah.
Human beings are supposed to be like you and I are right now, having a cocktail, smoking a cigar, sitting across from each other. And we all basically want the same things. We want to be healthy and successful.
We want the best for our kids.
Yes. We want the best for our community. We want to be happy. And there's too many filters in this life between human beings sitting down and communicating with each other and breaking bread with each other and talking with each other. There's too many filters.
Well, I will say, nobody should underestimate that point that you just made earlier, which is that there is a very active covert action wing within the Russian government, within Chinese intel, and their whole point sometimes is not to do anything other than just to sow distrust and instability and chaos. People say, well, why would they do that? Well, they do it because it's in their best interest. Again, going back to that same thought. So is it in the Russian best interest to kind of see the idea of, man, you know what, domestic terrorism and racism, that's your top priority in the States? Well, of course it is. And so we feed into that, right?
Right.
And we do our own part too, right? There's this desire to slice and dice the demographic, right, for political purposes, right? If I can control this block, or if I can control that block, then I can win the election, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's fucked up. Right?
It's fucked up.
And I'm old enough to remember the riots. I was watching TV and as a kid, but the riots of the '60s and that whole civil rights process and everything. And I'll be honest with you, up until a handful of years ago, I really thought we'd moved on. I thought, it was all about who you are as a person, right? Your character, as Martin Luther King used to talk about, right? I think you'd be disgusted by this idea that it's all about the color of your skin. That's bullshit.
It is bullshit.
Yeah, and it's also the sexual orientation. I don't give a fuck what your sexual orientation is. I don't need to celebrate it. But I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care. Yeah. I think these are attack vectors.
That's a good way to put it.
They're ways that people can figure out a way to sow the seeds of dissent and discontent. And I think that, one of the things that happened that was really, we talked about the whole situation with the power grid here. It was really sad to me to watch people on the left saying, hey, hey, Texas, you still want your independence now?
Yes.
Like, look what happened. Like, man, you got babies freezing to death. You got people without clean water. Like, is that who you are? Because as an American, I don't give a fuck if you're a Republican or a Democrat. I share ideas from both sides. I'm kind of a hybrid in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm a big supporter of the Second Amendment. I'm a big supporter of the military, but I'm very liberal. I'm socially very liberal. Like I don't buy this idea that I have to be a part of one party or another party. I 100% support gay rights. I 100% support women's rights, civil rights, trans rights across the board, but not at the expense of other people.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm against this whole idea of, trans athletes competing against biological females. But it's also why I'm also in support of the Second Amendment. Like, some people, they're raised poorly, they're abused, they're tortured, they're fucking put in foster care, they find their way into juvenile detention, they go to prison, and then they're out, and they have no money, and then the pandemic hits, and they want to rob your house. If you don't think you should have a gun to protect yourself from bad people who just by circumstance or by bad fucking luck find themselves at your doorstep, you're crazy. You're crazy. You don't love your family. If you don't think you should be able to protect, if you're in a bad situation and it's you protecting people against an attack from bad people, you're out of your mind. Right. You've never experienced bad people then. You've never experienced dangerous people.
That's a good point. I mean, a lot of people like to imagine that there's this community of goodwill out there, and that if just given the opportunity, all people would be, they would be inclined to go along with what's in your best interest. Look,
if you could find them as babies,
yeah,
and raise them right. When you have children, and I have children too, and there's a thing that you find out when you have children. When I had children, it changed me as a man. It changed me as a human being. And one of the most profound ways it changed me is I stopped thinking about people as static things. I stopped thinking about a man as like, this is a 54-year-old man, and here he is. Yeah. I go, oh, this is a grown-up baby. And I really started thinking about people like that. I started thinking about people as children.
Yeah.
That grew up, and by bad circumstance, by abuse, by horrible environments, they became this bad person. But I don't think people are born bad.
Yeah,
but there's some people
I agree with you. I don't think they are. I think the environment creates, look, there's so many sides to this, right? I mean, like criminal justice reform. Of course, right? We need to focus on criminal justice reform, but at the same time, I, as somebody who owns a walk-in safe, you're never going to convince me that it's not my right to protect.
When you say walk-in safe, you mean a gun safe.
Yes.
Let's be honest. You have fucking gold bars in there, bro.
I got catheters and gold bars. Yeah. That's what I got. No, I'm kidding.
I just a collection of dildos from the 16th century.
That's like, well, those things are Roman clay dildos. Where did that come from? But as a walk-in gun safe. Look, you have the right. I mean, think about a family. You're raising your kids, and the legitimate police response time is 20, 30 minutes, right? Not because the police are overstretched, but even just because you're living in some place where that's how long it's going to take, right? And it's like this idea of, what's a good example? It's like when you talk about, well, should some of the teachers in a school be armed? Well, we have in Idaho, we have schools where legitimately the sheriff getting to that school is going to take him 25 minutes because of the fucking distance, right? So, yes, do I want a couple of well-trained, vetted, responsible teachers in that public school to be armed in case there is, God forbid, some incident? Yeah, fuck yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Right? So that to me is common sense. And then you'll get people going, well, that's just wrong. Well, how is it wrong? You're protecting children.
Well, it's also the idea that people are mutually exclusive. Like, these are two mutually exclusive ideas. Like, someone can't be a math teacher but also be trained in firearm use.
Yes. Yeah.
That's crazy. Of course, it's a human being. If it's a human being that understands math, that guy could be good at anything else.
Right, and you insist that they do. Yeah. And there's ways to do it. That's just not a heavy lift to have someone trained up and then go through continuous training, because they have to do that. I mean, the problem with a lot of people is, they'll get scared, or for whatever reason they'll think, oh, they're going to take away our guns, so I better go out and buy one. Right? There's a huge surge in gun sales.
My God, the pandemic was the best thing that ever happened to the gun industry.
For the manufacturers, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And I'm sure the NRA too. I'm sure the NRA's membership went up too.
The NRA's had some serious problems.
Well, they have had a lot of problems, but they're there's not a lot of organizations that are fighting for gun rights.
Yeah, there's very few.
Yeah.
So they're important in that sense, but I think that do I think that it's important to insist that but again, that's common sense, right? I don't want the federal government to say, what you have to do, but it's like the masks. I'll tell you this, flying into Texas, right? On an aircraft I was on, one of the flight attendants came up and kind of tapped me on the shoulder as we were getting ready to land and said, well, be careful, because, Texas has gotten rid of the mask mandate. So, and the point was, from the flight attendant was,
Did she just say it to you?
Yeah, it's going to be like
she likes you.
Yeah, it's a Wild West. It's going to be the Wild West. Well,
she's like, Mr. Baker,
you be careful out there, because
because I like you.
Yeah, and so, but the point, my wife was sitting right next to me. There was nothing untoward. It wasn't like no, we were not engaged in any shenanigans. But the point was that they looked at it and they go, oh, Governor Abbott said this, and it's political, right? But my point of my story is, I walked off the plane, everybody was wearing a mask.
Yeah, this is the thing that Governor Abbott said. He said, I encourage you to wear a mask. You should still wear a mask, but I don't want the state to tell you what to do.
Right.
That's what I support.
And if you don't want the state to tell you what to do, you shouldn't want the federal government telling you what to do.
Exactly.
But everybody I've seen in Austin, wearing a mask.
Yeah. Well, until you go to a restaurant and then you sit down, then there's no mask, and I don't understand that. Well, the whole thing is nonsense. You have to wear a mask when you go to pee, and then you don't wear a mask when you come back and sit down at your table. Like, okay.
I mean, because, to be fair, they've got, mostly 6 foot distance. They haven't, the places that I've been here in Texas, they keep the social distance. But I guess my point was, like, you get this, and we talked about this earlier before the show, but was the idea that some people just like to suffer, and they suffer well, right?
They enjoy the fact that this is hard and bad, and that's really sad, but it's true. There's people that they enjoy being depressed. It's a hard thing to even say, because you don't want it to be real. You don't want there to really be people out there that like that. When there's some people that when we got shut into our homes and everyone was sad and everyone was scared, they enjoyed it because that's how they live all the time.
Yeah, or there's just it's their time to shine. Some people have really shown during the pandemic. Yeah, and it's like I saw this post from this individual who is a professional, clearly from their job, and they posted, I'm dealing with such anxiety now because of the possible return to normal and the idea that I'm going to have to travel and I won't be able to have dinner with my kids. And I'm just like, and I'm thinking, fuck you. You've had the. It was clear from the post that they've had the luxury of working from home and not losing their job. And they could teach their kids. And it's this idea of not opening the public schools. These kids out here who don't have Wi-Fi, who don't have laptops, who have a one-parent home, who has to work, all those can't afford a tutor, can't make a little pod to teach their kids. Those people aren't doing well, right? And those kids are suffering. And then you get like the people who can afford to set up a private pod for their kids and bring a tutor in and have strong Wi-Fi and can do all those things, have English as a first language. And they're doing just fine. And they're like, well, we should not go back to school. Fuck you. Kids have disappeared off the radar during this past year. And the schools don't even know where they are in places like New York and Chicago and other places. So it's fucked up. Yeah,
there's narratives out there. And the problem with these narratives it's not that they're all completely inaccurate. The problem is when you espouse these narratives in a very condensed, processed way like social media, you get a bunch of people that support it and a bunch of people that argue against it. But if it's a narrative like, we should stay home, we should all wear masks, pretty hard for people to fight against that, right? So people, they pile on, and then people get addicted to like the reactions and the interactions on Twitter, and it's like, it becomes this weird fucking method of communication, the method of discussing ideas. And people get really attached to whatever they believe in, whether they believe the kids should be in school to the end of time and all fucking interactions should be done through Zoom, or that we should all throw away our masks and achieve herd immunity, and you should take vitamin D and go out in the sun and fucking exercise and be healthier. And
you can do all of it, right? You can wear a mask because okay, fine. My freedoms aren't infringed by wearing a mask. I don't give a shit.
It's not that big a deal.
Yeah, but at the same time, do I want my kids back in school? Do I think it's healthy for my oldest boy Sluggo to be wearing his pajamas or his sweatpants all day long and learning from distance? No, and I think that it's just. So there are, I do agree with the idea that there are people that suffer well. They're kind of wielding this whole thing as a sort of justice. Yeah. So,
well, a good example, the comedy community is an interesting example, because one of the things that a lot of my professional comedian friends have found is that there's a lot of people that never worked. And when I say never, I'm exaggerating, but they weren't successful. They weren't selling out clubs and theaters. They weren't doing well. And they're so angry that some comics have decided to go on the road again. Because a lot of places have opened up. Texas has opened up. Florida has opened up. You can go and do shows.
But that's a chance to do work, right? I mean, so
it is. But they're angry, and they want the narrative is that you're doing these super spreader events. People even got mad at me and Dave Chappelle because Dave and I were doing these shows at Stubbs Amphitheater in Austin outside. There's no evidence whatsoever that the virus spreads outside, and I mean literally none. Yeah. There's no evidence. And then on top of that, we test everyone in the crowd. It's expensive. It takes a long time. The people get there early. We test the entire crowd.
Are you doing temperature checks? Or
no, we're doing antigen tests for the entire crowd.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's great, but it's crazy.
It's expensive, but it's the way to do it, and we had a great fucking time, and we're doing it again. But some comics have been mad at that. But if you go and look at the comics that are mad, they're all unsuccessful.
Yeah.
Or super liberal, and they're virtue signaling. They're looking to like tag on to this idea that what you're doing is bad, and then what we should do is all stay home and lock down. Like, you can go outside. And by the way, most people, like 99.9 whatever percent, survive. There was a recent study that showed that 78% of all the people that are hospitalized from COVID are overweight. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, the
Where
obesity
is the shame in that? All these people are talking about fat shaming.
Right.
You want to talk about the super spreaders? Yeah. It's people that have ignored their health. And those people need help, and they need support, and they need love. But there's a reality to the people that are getting sick from this. If everyone was healthy, this would almost be a non-issue. Yeah. Now, that's not a health shaming thing. Like, we should be shaming people that are in poor health or people that are born with, comorbidity factors like diabetes and whatever.
Of course, yeah.
But we're not looking at this thing 100% objective. If we were, we would have a completely different take on it.
Well, look, there's no science. That's an example. I'm focused because I got these three knuckleheads at home, right? So I'm focused on like the education side of things as well, and so as are you. But there's no science. People believe science. Well, of course, believe science. That's one of the funniest narratives. Believe science. Well, who the fuck doesn't believe? I mean, that's fine, but it's a political issue, right? So, but I think that there's no science that shows that a 6-foot distance in public schools for kids, right, is essential to their health. So, in fact, the science shows 3 foot. That's fine. And what that does, though, the importance of that is logistics, right? Because it allows for you to get the schools open again. People will talk about this 6-foot distance. We can't get the kids back into their classrooms with 6-foot distance because we can't get enough of them in there. It's the little things. It's the logistics of it saying, well, get it down to 3 foot, which is what the science supports, and then you can get these schools, you can start opening these places back up in a responsible manner. Honest to God, we're going to look at this thing in a year or two. Maybe we won't because we're not going to be honest with ourselves. But if we actually did an honest hot wash of this reaction to the pandemic, our reaction has been pathetic, right, over this past year. This has not been a shining moment for us.
Don't you think part of the problem is we started out with a different idea what the virus is? We started out thinking that it was going to be like the next Spanish flu. And that it was going to kill. I mean, everyone was terrified, me included. I was scared of it. In the beginning, I thought that it was going to be something that kills 10% of the population, And it didn't turn out to be that way, but we never made an adjustment.
Yeah. No, yes, I think that's true. And I think also part of it is you can't negate or minimize the political reaction, right? If Joe Biden had been president when this thing broke, I guarantee you the reaction would have been somewhat different. The fact that Trump was in there and created so much emotion, and there was such animosity.
Thank God Trump wasn't pro-vaccine. We would be fucked because he was pro so many other therapeutics, and they're like, hydroxychloroquine is racist. Thank God he didn't say anything about ivermectin or vitamin D or quercetin or any of the other things that or zinc.
Yeah, but I do think that that was a big issue. Was like, see,
he's so polarizing,
and we can't trust the vaccines because they were developed under Trump.
Right.
Well, fuck it, believe the science. They were developed by companies that have nothing but scientists and doctors and engineers working inside them. Yeah. And so if you believe the science, then you better believe that they were developing vaccines that you should have been happy about. So, everything, I don't know. It's the political nature of this country. And again, going back to what we were talking about earlier with the Russians and the Chinese, they see that and they just keep sticking the knife in, right?
Yeah.
And the more they do, the more they tear the threads of our belief in the system, and the more polarized we get, and the more yelling that goes on, and the more bullshit people believe when they read social media, and they don't bother to say, well, who wrote this, right? And is this actually a scientific piece of work? Or is this just and what's the origin of it? What's the outlet, right? And half the time the outlet is overseas someplace, and then you got to dig into it. It's like an asset tracing exercise. Who owns that company?
Right.
Then you find out it's owned by some Russian entity that's got an operation out of Cyprus, or whatever.
Well, there's a weird thing when you find something like you find a meme, like a political meme or a meme that has something to do with anything that's going on in the popular culture. and then you go to the page that runs the meme, and you find out this page has this like weird address, and they're all memes, and there's no quotes to the memes.
Yes.
There's no English, and you're like, what is going on here? And you realize, like, oh my God, this is a propaganda page. This is a page that someone or some entity has set up to try to make fun of things, to try to turn things viral, and they churn them out 6, 7, 10 a day. And they're just trying to make viral memes that influence the way people look at things.
And the ease of doing that. Look, you go back to the sort of earlier days of the CIA, and you think about trying to influence opinion or actions in a particular foreign government, right? And again, going back to that idea that, well, you didn't have that many opportunities, so what did you do? You try to influence the local media. Well, that was newspapers or radio or whatever, so you target the, how do I place these articles, right? And the ability to do that now is, I mean, God, I wish I was still in the business now, right? Because you could change public opinion in a heartbeat, right? Compared to what it used to be like. But the Russians, in particular, are very, very good at this. And people would criticize, as an example, Voice of America. Remember the old Voice of America? It still exists.
What is it?
But Voice of America, VOA, was... it's out there, and in the early days, the idea was to get news into the former the Soviet Union at the time, right? So it was this broadcasting outlet that would provide news to parts of the world that were under communist influence, right? And was it directed in this? Was it designed to criticize the regimes that were, the Soviets or whomever was running the? Yes, of course it was. Was it designed to promote democracy and the idea of free thinking? Of course it was, right? So is that propaganda? Is that covert action? Well, yes, it is. Is it designed to promote, the idea of democracy and freedom? Yes. So can we, is that better than the Russians trying with their covert action to criticize and sow disbelief in the U.S. manufactured vaccines? Yeah, I think I can make a relative judgment and say one is better than the other. But again, going back to your thing about people saying, well, the U.S. does it too, there's degrees of what is, what is acceptable and what isn't, what is right and what is wrong. And, it's a gray world out there. There's no black and white. But I guess what so yeah, I am fascinated by that question about, does it frustrate you that people say America does it too?
Yeah.
And I keep going back and people say, oh, you rose-colored glasses and all that bullshit about, but I've seen enough shit over there to think that, yes, we try to do the right thing, or we try to mirror our values, right? And what are our values? Well, if you think about it and we say, that's fine. I would rather have our values existing in a place like Iran, and the population would too, frankly, than the theocratic regime that exists there. So,
listen,
disappearing down a rabbit hole.
No, listen, there's a weird narrative, a weird anti-American narrative that exists even inside of America, and that's oftentimes when you have children, they rebel against their parents, and I don't think there's.
Yeah,
I think there's a similar thing. Like, America's not perfect, but Iran executed an Olympic gold medalist in wrestling because he protested against the government, and that's a fact.
Yeah.
And we were talking about China yesterday. What China has done in terms of there was that Jack Ma guy who disappeared for 3 months and came back, and he's been whatever.
he's towing the line. He's a little more compliant now. Let's put it that way.
He realized that he doesn't like prison.
Yeah, right.
And he realized they can disappear him for a few months.
When was the last time anybody talked about the Uyghurs? Right?
Yeah, that's good.
That's fucking genocide, and
we don't know what they're doing, right?
No,
we don't know.
We know it's bad, right?
Yeah.
But it's Xi's regime, right? Look, that guy has spent years now cementing his place, and much like Putin did, but with more subtlety. He's smarter than Putin. Putin's a very smart politician, right? He's kept himself in power in a place where it's a constant kabuki dance to try to figure out how to avoid your opponents. Putin's proved himself to be a master at that, but Xi has cemented his place in there. He is the most important leader of China going generations back, right? And he has done it through suppression He's done it through, the buildup of the security service, the internal security services, the suppression of information, oppression of journalists. And so, yeah, do I think that, so every time I start off on this path, I get these responses that it's just like, well.
Do you read the responses? Do you read that shit?
Not really.
That's part of the problem, is reading that shit.
Yeah, I know.
It's probably the Russians texting you.
Yeah.
Sending you messages.
Yeah. Let's
Russians
face it.
and Chinese are attacking you.
Yeah. My daughter worked and lived in China for a while, right? She speaks Chinese and she's a great kid, but she would always be like, Dad, come on, I got to work and live over here. And I said, well, look, she gets it. She got the joke, right? She understood, how oppressive that place could be because she had spent time over there. I get questions from companies that are doing business over there or are about to start doing business over there, and their questions are always typically in the same bucket, right? Which is, how do we protect our information? Right? We're going to build a manufacturing facility over there, or we're going to build a lab over there to whatever it might be, pharmaceuticals or technology. And the question is always, how do we go about securing our information and protect? And you don't, is the answer. Right? You build a facility over there, they're going to get it. They're going to either get it through coercive means of saying, well, if you want business over here, this is what you have to sign up to. We're going to have access to your code or whatever it may be, or they're just going to steal it. Right? So, again, going back to the same thing, is we just have to be pragmatic, right? I mean, stop acting as if the rest of the world is trying to come together in some community of nations, right? And I think Biden gets it, right? I mean, I don't know how long he's going to be in charge of the administration, but
I'm worried about him. I mean, of course.
Yeah, I think he understands it. He's a pragmatic guy. He's a smart character, but he's got a lot of pressure on him politically from a variety of different angles. And so I look at.
Do you think he's lucid though?
Do I think he's lucid? Yes, right now.
That's a long pause.
Yeah, that's a long pause. No,
every fucking couple of days he gives a speech and it goes viral, and the quote under the viral video is like WTF.
Yeah.
Like, what is he saying?
Yeah. Well, look,
Poor guy.
I think he is.
He should be fishing.
I shouldn't have paused that long. I think he is. I just think that I think his instincts are overridden by the priorities of the further left portion of the party.
Yeah.
And so, for me,
but why do you think that is? Do they think that is more effective? Do they think the further left, like that, the people in the moderate left will go along with the further left because at least it's far away from the far right? Yeah,
I just think that the extremes always make the most noise. Right. They always make, whether it's the far right or the far left, right? And so I think that they're the vocal, in a sense, minority, right? They're the ones who are always going to be beating the drums and screaming about shit. And I mean, it's like this thing, not to change subject entirely, but it's like if you look at the far right. Right? We had an incident in Idaho, in Boise, not that long ago, a few days ago, where some parents brought their kids to the state house, and they had a mask burning ceremony.
I saw that.
Yeah. A mask. You bring your kid.
Send me that video? Who? Alex Jones. Look, they're taking over.
Oh my God.
They're figuring it out.
You know what?
America's coming back.
But you know what the secret to that is? None of those people, and it was a small gathering, right? Yeah. It made news because they brought their kids, right?
Yeah,
and it's kind of wacky.
It made news. You know what didn't make news?
Yeah.
Bombing Syria. Yeah, that didn't make news.
No.
Both those things are happening at the same time.
Yeah.
And this fucking ridiculous exercise of burning these cotton masks became important.
Right. But you know what? In that crowd, in that small crowd, you know how many people were from Boise? None. Right. So what you had was you had some people coming from out of town. Well, they're all Russians. That's right. There are a lot of Chinese.
Where are they from?
They were all from out of
Mountain
town,
towns.
and none of them from a town where they had a mask mandate. It wasn't like they were forced to wear masks. They were just trying to make a point. But because it was like one of those moments where you think, really, did you have to come?
It?
Yeah, this guy in the back has a whole bag of them.
Yeah. Did you have to? I mean, look at this. So these people.
I don't like how that one's hanging over the edge. Throw it in there, girl.
Get that in there. Yeah, watch yourself. Don't set that fleece on fire.
Come over here. That's a nice
Get
girl.
over here. Nice
Being
job.
nice to her sister.
Oh, clap.
Come over here.
Yeah. Get those in there.
Sweetie.
Come on. Get that.
Look at
Oh, here you go. Put
at
that
that
mask in.
dummy.
That kid behind him wants to. He
Yeah.
wants to throw his in, but he's a little awkward.
Look at the guy there with a double flannel. You fucking fashion victim.
That's one of
Look
those
at that guy.
shirt
That guy's a
jackets.
fashion criminal with his double flannel.
Yeah.
He doesn't know who he is.
You know what? Those shirt jackets that he's wearing, those were very popular in the 70s.
Look at the girl clapping.
Yeah, I know. Look at
Nonsense.
this. Yeah, burn that mask. Yeah, now get away from the fire.
What is this? What does the thing say? What does the sign say? Not suffering. What does that say?
Don't self-suffocate.
That
Don't
lady is in the
self-suffocate.
Westboro Baptist Church.
Yeah, so
She's just there on vacation.
So it's not like, again, not a big crowd, but it made the news because, and to your point, because it feeds some narrative, right? It feeds some narrative.
Look at the lady in the back with the red, the lumberjack.
Oh,
She had a fucking old school camera she was videoing. She doesn't even have a phone. Look at her.
Oh, wait, you're right. That's like
She doesn't even have a fucking phone.
Especially you had one of those video cameras you'd held on your shoulder back in the old days.
She's got a Windows phone and it can't update.
Oh God! But it's not like those people live in a city where there's a mask mandate,
No,
right? So
they're
they come
just
into town,
dorks.
they do this thing, and to your point, it got how much coverage? That son of a bitch guy. I heard from all sorts of people saying, "What the hell's happening in Idaho?"
That's just
know.
Facebook.
Yeah,
People get excited. They want to see. Oh my God! It's going to go everywhere.
yeah, but
It's going to be everywhere.
It's you know what? You go to Boise. You go to really most parts of Idaho, everybody's wearing a mask. They're doing the right thing. They don't have to be told by the federal government to do the right thing. They're just doing it because what the fuck? You know,
But there's this thing going on where there's all these different arguments and there's all these different narratives and all these different people that are arguing their points, and no one knows exactly what the motives are, exactly who's doing what or why, and you're worried about the far left if you're in the far right, and you're worried about the left. Everybody in the right is worried about the left. Everybody in the left is worried about the right, and everybody in the center is trying to figure out where the fuck the rational people are. One of the things that I'm worried about, and this is going to sound really weird, but I'm worried that what this is really gonna, what all of this dissent and confusion is going to bring about is the rise of some sort of technological symbiosis where we could read each other's minds, where we can understand each other better, and it's going to make us less human than we are currently. I'm really worried about that, and I'm worried about these weird interfaces. Like Elon Musk is trying to do this Neuralink thing, and I think he's doing it because he wants to access. He wants to increase the bandwidth between human beings and information, which is it's a noble concept.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to make people smarter, more access to information. And one of the things he said to me, you're going to be able to talk without words.
I think. I
think
don't
we're
know
gonna
necessarily.
read each
I don't know that
other's
there's I don't know that there's a correlation between access to more information and getting smarter. Right?
But this is what I think.
So,
I think ultimately there's going to be some sort of technology that literally allows people to understand people's intent and to read their thoughts and ideas. And I think it's not that far away. It might be 50 years, whatever it is. But we're moving in this direction where we're going to be less human. And that might be because of all the bullshit that's been created by social media and by these conversations, by these algorithms that encourage people to be upset about things, that they encourage outrage, that we're going to move into some weird place where we're going to have to change who we are in order to recognize what are the motives behind these different programs and campaigns that are forcing people into these situations where they hate each other.
Yeah. As somebody who's taken the polygraph, I don't know, four dozen times.
I want to see if I can lie.
Yeah, well, what I was going to say was, we used to say with the polygraph that, oh my God, can't you just put like a colander on our head and just read our thoughts, because that would be a lot more pleasant and easier, right?
Have you beaten a polygraph? Have you ever lied?
No, I've had a lot of inconclusive because the polygraph. The thing about the polygraph is it's all physiological activity, right? It's blood pressure and sweat and you know.
What is it? It's like heart rate, right?
Heart rate, and it's an imperfect system.
Yeah, because it doesn't hold up in court.
Right, and it's also entirely dependent on the experience and the abilities of the examiner, right? And that varies because it's a human effort, right? So you'll get a good polygrapher, you'll get one that's got less experience, you'll get one who's had a bad day and it's just, whatever.
Right.
And I've seen these things fail miserably. Obviously in the intel community, in the agency, we've had people Aldrich Ames, right, is a good example.
Who's
right? He was one of our traders, right? So Aldrich Ames went to work for the enemy, and
Which enemy?
The Russians, and sold out, caused a fair number of deaths. Hansen is another good example from the FBI. Ed Lee Howard, I mean, oh my God, Jim Nicholson, all these people that were able to beat the polygraph because essentially they're psychopaths, right? They don't see the difference between right and wrong. So the polygraph doesn't have any influence on them. If you're a Quaker, if you walk around and you feel bad about everything, right? Ah, God, I remember I took those cookies when I was a kid, and I shouldn't have.
Plugged that toaster in. I fucked up.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't. So what? The old toaster incident.
I use that electricity.
So
I'm a bad Amish.
I'm a bad person. I shouldn't have done it. So if you carry that with you, then yeah, you're gonna have a problem with a polygraph because you're gonna be thinking about all these things. And I've had, back in the day, you take the polygraph and the examiner would be like, oh my God, we're going to take it again. It's inconclusive. Yeah. Look, we're just worried about, have you sold secrets to the enemy? That's all. We're not worried about any of the other shit, right? And yet, if you get somebody who doesn't think that way, like an Aldrich Ames or some of these people, then yeah, they'll pass the polygraph. So in our minds, we were always thinking, well, just come up with something better. Well, now they're getting there, right? They're getting to the ability to, with scans, brain scans,
fMRI.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah. So you're getting closer, but it's not one of those things that you're going to, subject your workforce to. It's costly. It's very difficult to do. It's all these things. So you use it for a high value target, for instance, like a KSM or, one of these cats from the old terrorist days. So I guess my point with that is we're still relying on the old school technology of the polygraph for the most part.
And we know it can be beaten.
And it can be beaten if you feel no difference between right and wrong, right? If you just walk through life and you don't give a fuck, then the polygraph isn't much of an issue for you. So but luckily most people aren't like that. Most people will get hooked up and they'll start reacting, right? And that's a good thing.
But what about false memories? Because it's been shown that particularly through hypnotic regression that you can introduce false memories to a person. So if you say to you can create a memory in a person, whatever, about seeing Bigfoot or whatever it is, and that person can really believe it. It's been proven that they can do that.
Yeah.
Especially under hypnosis. So if you can hypnotize someone, get them to believe a false narrative, and then hook them up to a polygraph, and then describe that false narrative, they'll show that they believe that thing, even though that thing is not really true.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, if you talk to somebody who said, "Okay, I was kidnapped by a UFO, by aliens," they're going to believe it, right? They're not going to react to it. So what do you do with a polygraph? Again, people are like, "Oh, we're having a lesson on the polygraph," but I mean, what you do is you have other information that you've developed about that individual. Right?
Yeah.
That you use. So it's a tool in the kit bag that you use, at least in the intel community, to determine credibility. And
it's just one tool.
It's just one tool. Yeah, it's one tool. You do not want to completely rely on the polygraph, right? But I have seen it work well, and then I've seen it fail miserably, right? So, what I would like to see, I mean, I look at it from a counterintelligence perspective. If we can create something that can read people's minds, great, because what that does is that allows us to identify the traitor within the group, the mole, a lot quicker. And counterintelligence operations are always an enormous lift. People say, like, I can't believe you allowed whomever, Hansen, to operate, within the bureau and have all those lives lost and betray us to the Russians for all those years. And my response is always, I can't believe we caught him, because it's a very heavy lift. It's a very difficult thing to do. So, but to your point, yeah, do I want us to develop that ability in general? No, I think that's
it's inevitable.
Yeah.
I think it's inevitable. I think it's coming whether we want it or not. I think if you look at if you go back in time and you go to Martin Luther and you go to the printing press and the ability to translate the Bible into a phonetic language, like and the changes that had on society, and you move that into the future, and you go to the free press, and then you go to the internet, and you go to social media, and you go to where we are today. One of the things that's common, the thing that it all shares in common, is that there's a course in this path that seems to be inevitable, is that there's a shrinking of the distance between human beings and information. And information is far more accessible than it's ever been before. And there is some resistance to that, right? Like there's some censorship in terms of like what you're allowed to search and what you're not allowed to search. We talked about earlier with Google and DuckDuckGo, and the things are curated, and we all aware of the problems with big tech censoring certain voices on social media because they're concerned with the narrative that's going to be, because they're thinking about it in short-term gains and losses. But ultimately, all technology is leading into, there's a boundary between human beings and information. It's getting smaller and smaller and smaller to the point where information is going to be instantaneously accessible, whether it is a decade from now or a month from now or 100 years from now, whatever it is inevitable, in my opinion, that as technology continues to progress and innovation continues to be something that people value and that is prized and that is rewarded, we're going to move to a position where you're going to be able to read people's minds. You're going to be able to understand people's intent. And we're not going to trust people who aren't willing to do that. And it's going to help people in a lot of ways, because lying doesn't just hurt the people that you lie to. It hurts you because you're living some bullshit life where you're trying to pretend that you're something that you're not. And I think ultimately people are going to get that. And there's going to be people that fall by the wayside, and there's going to be people that rise because of it. And it's going to help culture ultimately. But I think one of the big things it's going to do, it's going to eliminate propaganda. And that's why I think it's going to be embraced. Because you can't have propaganda if people can actually understand what people's intentions are in a clear, like, how you have, like, if you enable location finding on your phone and you say, hey, I'm in Russia. And you're like, no, motherfucker, you're in Oklahoma. It says it on your picture. You piece of shit. This is fake.
Well, who's to say Oklahoma's a little bit of a foreign destination?
It depends on where you are and who you are.
Yeah, it's true.
How dare you?
See, I like Oklahoma.
It's foreign if you live in Connecticut.
Yeah. Who wants to be there anymore?
Connecticut's a rough spot right now.
Yeah.
Didn't they just decide to open wide up?
I do not know.
I think they did too. Didn't they, Jamie? I think Connecticut opened wide up too, which is odd.
We left Connecticut to go to Idaho, and
Connecticut is a highway.
Never been happier.
It's barely it's any city there is barely a city.
Yeah.
And it's barely a state. It's a highway between Boston and New York. See,
I will disagree on the it's going to be a benefit overall. I don't think it's going to be a benefit. I think it's going to happen. I don't disagree with that idea that it's just going to happen. But I think the quicker and the more access that we have to information has not done us any favors to date.
Hasn't it, though?
No. Well,
people are way more educated and informed than people were 1,000 years from now.
Yeah. No. Okay. But yeah, I think I'm very conflicted on this. Is the potential there for good? Yes. But if you look at the reality of it all, look how divisive we are now, right? Look how.
But maybe isn't that because we don't have access to all the information, so we're concerned and we're worried?
Yeah, I mean, maybe part of it is how much credit you give to individual humans, but I just think that we haven't done ourselves any favors yet. Maybe we learn, and maybe there's one day when it's all instantaneous, and so therefore everybody's showing their cards all at the same time, and there's no issues. But I just have a feeling that so far, we're so far. I don't think the internet has really. This is going to sound like I'm some sort of Luddite, but in terms of our children, in terms of general society and the way that we deal with each other, I don't know that it's done us more good than harm so far. I just have this feeling that the way that we are currently, right, and people. Because the human condition is still going to be that they're going to go to wherever they believe, right? So the fact that I know your intentions doesn't mean it's going to make me altruistic and understanding, right? That's not the human condition. It's just going to make me harden my opinion or figure out some way to get around the aspect of what your intentions are.
But
maybe I'm more cynical than you are.
Let me push back on that. Isn't that a lot of that like fear, and a lot of that is distrust of other people. There's a lot of the way we interact with each other. That's a lot of it is based on fear and distrust.
Yeah, but I don't think the additional access to information and instantaneous understanding of all. I don't think that's going to make us. Somehow, it's going to make the human condition better. I don't think it's going to make us more open to new ideas or others' ideas or opinions. I just have a feeling we're going to figure out a workaround, and it may harden our positions and.
But maybe there's a workaround to the workaround. Like, let's go back to the people in the 1950s that were terrified. The people in the 1950s that were terrified about rock and roll. Right? They were terrified. Elvis Presley shaking his hips. You can't show it on television. Yeah, there was a real argument. Yeah. It was a real argument that guy, he's swinging his cock on TV, and these girls are screaming.
Not literally swinging his cock.
What's that?
It led to porn.
What?
It led to like dirty porn, though.
No, there was porn before that.
I mean, but like more. You
Elvis?
Keep going more.
Elvis did, yeah. Elvis is directly responsible for
a lot of porn.
A lot of porn.
With the Neuralink thing, there's going to be software and hardware issues. I'm trying to piggyback off what he's saying. That would be very hard, knowing what we have seen over the past 20, 30 years. Hard to keep that out of there. Like, people would be able to mask their feelings from being seen by downloading the whole thing.
For now, but you know, that's also, again, like location services and like a lot of other things. Like, there's these little hurdles that come up that keep people from truly understanding the nature of an actual thing that you're experiencing.
Look, from my perspective, from an operational perspective, right, and from my business perspective, okay. What do? We we're involved in a lot of investigations, a lot of fraud concerns, a lot of asset tracing, all these things that my folks do. Hey, great. I'd love to be able to know immediately what somebody's intentions are. That makes the job so much easier, you know. But I guess what I'm saying is I think it doesn't change the base nature of human characteristics, you know. And so I don't think it's going to make us suddenly come together as a community and understand, you know, and get together. I think what's happened is the ability to access more information has just driven us apart and created these silos where we all just sit and listen to whatever affirms our opinion. And I don't think that, you know, a neural link or anything else is going to suddenly make us better people. And I think it's going to not be. I don't know. And again, what the fuck do I know? I'm not a neuroscientist, so I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't know.
What the fuck do I know, too?
But what the fuck do I know? But my experiences so far have told me that oftentimes people's intentions aren't particularly good, and that we have to be pragmatic, and sometimes being cynical is not a bad thing.
No.
But I don't know.
I don't think it's a bad thing either, but I think that what we're dealing with is there's a lot of confusion, and there's a lot of distrust, and there's a lot of conflict. There's a lot of these things going on, and a lot of it is based on the unknown. A lot of it is like, we don't know what the Russians are doing. We don't know what the far left is doing. We don't know what the far right is doing. We don't know what the Chinese are doing. And there's a problem with our own biology. It takes a long time for human beings to evolve biologically. Like, there's not much difference between our DNA and the DNA of people that lived 10,000 years ago. Yeah. But there's a massive difference in the world that we exist in.
You're saying we're Neanderthals? Because I've heard recently
Neanderthal thinking is bad.
Neanderthal thinking is bad. Yeah.
I think that as we move forward, technology is increasing at a pace that biology can't possibly keep up with. So we are left with these tribal biological instincts that were developed and that evolved when people were in tribes worried about other tribes coming over and attacking us. We were worried about the unknown. We were worried about animals. We were worried about attacks. We were worried about, you know, the sky turning into a monster that we didn't understand. And now we know so much more, but we still have the same human reward systems. We still have the same DNA and biology that was essentially programmed to keep us alive during these ignorant situations where we didn't really know, but now we know a lot. But now we know so much, we have this ability to communicate that's unprecedented.
But we're
and it's
still-
evolving and changing. And the only way I see that we can keep up with it is if we do something to interface with the technology in a way that's unprecedented, in a way that's different than just looking at a screen or looking at a phone, because you're still using the same biology and you're interfacing with new information when you're using a phone. And that's also created a lot of confusion. You know, that's part of the reasons why people isolate and insulate and get into these little bubbles of information and thought, and you know, they insulate themselves from opposing ideas, and it gives them comfort, and it makes them tribal. It makes them more tribal. And I think it's not a coincidence that the more technology increases and the more access to information increases, the more likely people are to get into these weird fucking groups where they have echo chambers. I think one of the only ways it's going to move us out of that is some sort of technology that alleviates a lot of our concerns by giving us information about intent, give us information about what people's real thoughts are and real intentions are, and let people know that most of us want the same thing. Most of us really truly want the same thing, and a lot of the conflict that has been that's been exploited, whether it's by social media algorithms or it's by foreign countries or, you know, bad entities, they've done so by preying upon these biological limitations.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I don't want to live in a world where I can read people's intents, right? I mean, because part of it is sort of like you take it down to the base level in terms of just relationships, right? I think part of the excitement of life is not knowing, in a way, right? That sounds maybe stupid.
Sounds like a married guy.
Yeah, it sounds like a married guy.
If you're single, what do you say,
What
James?
if, like, I was trying to think about what age do you do this? If you do it to a baby, because then you could hear what your baby's thinking, but also you're going to have to replace that multiple times as they grow older, or their brain might not develop correctly because there's already an interference, you know.
An
So
interference? How so?
Because there's wires in the baby's brain. That's not biological.
Oh, yeah.
So
The
you have to
wires
wait.
thing is like, I think the wires thing is like a wired phone. You know, it's like, you know, like right now we don't have to have a wire. I don't have a phone in my house, like a wired
Yeah,
phone.
nobody's got a landline
No,
anymore. Yeah.
But we used to. You know, I think this wired thing is like a shitty
All right,
technology.
okay,
that-
well, you still have to have let's just get the wires. The sensor
Yeah.
then is still close to your brain, and you have to cut the hole in the head. And
for now. But remember when
Okay.
we were talking with Jamie Metzl yesterday about CRISPR? What if CRISPR gets to the point where, you know, there's some new technology that we literally develop the human mind to the point where it can access Wi-Fi, where it can access some new software or some new hardware that allows people to communicate with each other without no filter in between us, whether
Sounds
it's
awful.
language.
I will say this. It sounds awful. What you're describing, yeah, I'm a simpleton. I admit
You
it.
sound like a
Yeah.
guy in the
Yeah.
1950s who's
Yeah.
a pastor who's
No.
looking at Elvis
No.
Presley,
No, I
shaking
just-
his
it's
hips.
not- it's not- no,
This
I-
is the end of civilization.
No. I
cost.
loved Elvis. Look, I
matter.
was, you know, but what I'm saying is, I think, look, would I want to grow up as a kid today compared to when I grew up, which was we didn't have access to that news. We had like 3 channels for news, right? Everybody had a shared experience in a sense, right? Now,
Yeah.
am I saying I'm not somebody who looks back at the past and goes, "Oh my God, it was so wonderful." It was, you know, there were problems then too. Of course it was, and so, you know, but was there, as an example, was there a benefit to having, you know, much of the country sitting down for the 5 o'clock news or the 11 o'clock news, and everybody had a shared experience. They were getting the same news, right? And they would process it differently based on their own personal life experience, right? And where they were sitting in life. But there was a shared moment in time, right? This is a small example, but I look at that and I go, you know, was there some benefit to that? And I think there was, because now you don't have that. And that creates in part what we've got today with this divisiveness that exists. And everybody's sitting in their trenches. It's like World War I, right? Everybody's throwing grenades. Nobody wants to come out into no man's land. And then I go back to the other part of it, which is a little more touchy-feely, admittedly, which is I don't want to know. There's a element of life that, you know, it's sort of It's the unknown, right? I don't want to walk around knowing exactly what your intention is or what Jamie's intention is or what it's not a concern of mine, right? Life can be pretty simple if you think about it, right? If you think, what am I interested in? I'm interested in trying to be a good person, raising my family so that the kids are good people and productive people. And the idea of getting to some point in life where we don't have to talk to communicate, right? I mean, no, I'm not a buyer on that one.
This is where we're headed, Mike. We're going to be these little aliens.
I know. I remember that
future.
Remember the Star Trek? I think it was a 2-part episode where they all just kind of communicate without talking.
Yes.
I think, that's fucked up. Again, I don't want to.
But the problem with the scenario that you're painting in these rose-colored glasses is that there was a small group of people that curated that information that was portrayed on the 5 o'clock news.
Sure.
That's the problem. It's like then you relied on government entities and propaganda, and you could have people with unscrupulous ideas, and that's what led to Stalin.
But are
Russia
you saying that now
Mao's
But are you
China.
saying that now it's better in terms of politics and the governments and our reliance on government and the way that we
it's
have
better
our
in
information?
terms of whether or not we know the government's full of shit, because we're way more aware.
Yeah.
Way more aware.
Well,
of
I won't
corruption.
disagree with that. I won't disagree with that. But that, part of that is an investigative responsibility, right? And part of that is the ability of individuals to question what's happening. That never changes, right? That's been the same now as it was during the penny press.
But they have access to Google and DuckDuckGo and search engines. And
are you an investor in DuckDuckGo?
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay. Just checking.
Nothing to do with it. But I like it. I'm a believer in unbiased sources, and I think there's only a few of them out there. There's things that don't. It's one of the reasons why I like Apple over Android. They don't share your information the same. Yeah. And I think there's real value in that, because human beings have been using these things, whether it's Google or Facebook, and we always thought that was the product, that we were using these things, and that these things, Facebook was the product, Google was the product. And then somewhere along the line, we realized, no, we're the product. Our data is the product, and we're selling. But by using these things for free, by using whatever it is, their message services and posting on these things, we think we're getting something for free, but we're not. Because we're giving up our data, we're giving up all of our metadata and all of our information, and through these algorithms, they've been able to amass insane amounts of wealth just by using our information.
Well, and it's something that, I always laugh when people talk about the government, collecting information on you. Say government's not the problem. The U.S. government's not the issue.
Nothing
here,
in
right?
comparison
It can't
to
organize
social media
panic in a doomed
corporations.
submarine. Yeah. So I mean, it's the corporations, but
and these new corporations that 25 years ago didn't even exist. There was no such thing as Facebook and Google. They didn't have an influence on world ideas. They didn't have an influence on the way people express narratives. There was no influence by tech companies on other than selling you cool products. 25 years ago, all they did is sell you things that you thought would enhance your life.
I guess what I'm saying is I don't disagree in the sense of, from again, going back to the operational perspective, there's a lot of advantage, right, from somebody who is worried about security and national security concerns. And hey, there's a lot of advantage to getting to that point. I just don't think it's going to improve the human condition necessarily. I don't think there's going to be the upside that necessarily comes from instantaneous, immediate access to understanding people's plans and intentions and information. I don't think it's going to make us less tribal.
This was the same argument they had about the printing press. It really is.
No,
the argument
I've
about
just
the
been
printing
caught.
press.
I've been caught short there. I can't spot the lie in what you just said.
If you follow like Steven Pinker's work and you follow like the analysis of violence and crime as it relates to the progress of civilization and humanity, there's a path, and this is not to discount all the situations where people have been the victim of violence and the victim of crime. But there's less instances of it statistically. If you had an overlook, if you were looking at the earth from above and you looked at a trend in terms of like the way civilization is heading, as technology progresses, as access to food and resources and information progress, you have less instances of violence, less instances of crime, and less instances of all the undesirable things. Whether it's sexual assault or racism, all the things, they occur less over time. And I think that as technology increases, this will be a trend that continues to go in that direction. This is just me guessing based on the work of other people far smarter than me that have gone over this sort of pattern and looked at it in terms of like, where are we headed? We're not headed in a bad place. People can concentrate on all the bad things that still do exist, whether it's sexual harassment in the workplace or whether it's violence or whatever the thing you want to concentrate on. There's 8 billion people on this planet. You can find massive amounts of data that can support your idea that this is still a problem, and it's always going to be still a problem until there's no problems. Until we reach utopia, and I don't know if we're ever going to reach utopia.
No, we're not going to. That's where I think
we turn into these guys.
We turn into those guys.
These little genitalless, mouthless, little
my God,
mind readers.
By the way, we're getting ready to film a second season of Black Files Declassified.
Do you have any
look at that. It took me a while.
stuff?
We do.
Yeah?
We're going to have a couple of really good episodes on that.
I've been very underwhelmed lately by people who are involved in the UFO world, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think this is going to be good. We're visiting... We're gonna have a couple of good episodes on this.
Where are you visiting?
I'm prescribed from saying the exact show map right now, but I've seen
You're prescribed?
Well, I've seen the topics, and it's I'm not allowed to talk about it. I am
Why?
I am allowed to say that the first season of Black Files Declassified is available on Discovery Plus.
But you're not allowed to talk about what happens?
About what we're going to film in the next season?
Right.
No. But which is fine. But I don't think we're heading towards utopia. I don't think that's ever going to happen. Maybe I'm too cynical about the human condition and the way that we always find a way to fuck things up.
Let me ask you this though: in your home, I bet it's pretty utopian. In terms of like, if you think about the way people lived as cavemen versus the way you live today.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah.
In your home.
Oh,
in your
sure.
home with your family.
Yeah, the invention of the wheel.
Utopian.
And the invention of the toaster.
Food,
I mean, it's all good stuff.
Electricity,
Yes.
warmth,
Yes.
hot showers.
Yes.
Pretty goddamn good.
It is. It's very, very good.
Do you think
what
it's
I'm
going to continue along those same lines?
Yeah, but that's different than me sitting here and reading your intent immediately. That's separate from that, right? Now, again, if I'm concerned about finding a traitor in my intel organization, I like the idea very, very much.
Right.
But if I'm just some dude, right, who's interacting with people on a daily basis, do I find that less appealing? Yeah, I do. And I don't have a... There's not necessarily logic to what I'm saying. I know that.
Listen, you have a handicap. You're not even American. That's part of the problem. You got over here a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, God.
Like some fucking European, Australian character.
I know. You probably liked you like the European Union idea. I don't know.
I didn't even pay attention to that.
Oh, God.
I'm too busy.
Yeah, no, I know.
Some people didn't like it.
Hey, you mentioned, by the way, I just filed it away, and it just popped up in my data bank again. Syria. You mentioned Syria.
Yeah.
That was it's a very good point. There's very little attention paid to it. Except
people were paying attention to Ted Cruz trying to go to Cancun. They didn't give a fuck about Syria. It's
at
like,
what
Jesus
point?
Christ.
At what point did his chief of staff or somebody, right, who was booking his tickets, didn't say, Ted, this is probably the optic isn't look good, so maybe you shouldn't do it.
Why can't he wear like a better mask?
Did he wear a mask at all?
Yeah, but I mean, like, if you're gonna wear a mask, like, get someone to fucking dye your hair blue or something.
Yeah, you can't hide that Ted Cruz look. He's very discernible.
Shave your head.
Wear an eye patch.
Yeah, do something.
Come up with something.
It's just like, if you're gonna go to Cancun in the middle of a deep freeze, and then
God.
also be aware that you can't say I was gonna head right back when people can fucking research your ticket.
Yeah.
And find out you actually weren't coming back until Saturday.
It was weird. It was strange. It was a bizarrely bumbled job on his part and his staff's part, right? Because most of these people are kind of controlled by their staff.
How about his wife's got a bunch of friends that are fucking rats? How about that? They sold her down the river.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. Well, you know,
Gave up all her text messages talking about how it's freezing. We're gonna head out. But listen, if you have the means and you are stuck in a place where there's no power and the power's not coming back on and you can just fly to Cancun, I get the optics for Ted, but his family should absolutely be allowed to do that if they have the money.
Well,
it's not like you
yeah,
shouldn't have to stay and suffer because everybody else has to stay and suffer.
No, if you're going into public service, though, you should
He
tell your
should.
family. No, this family should too,
Yes.
because
His family
there's
should
no
too?
dividing line. Yeah, there's no people don't perceive the difference between Ted's wife and kids went to Cancun. They're not going to then say, but Ted stayed here, so that's good. The headline's going to be, he sent his family to Cancun.
That's
so
the
whether
part,
he
right?
went or not, it didn't matter. And so that's why I say it was a stupid political move on his part, and a
But
very
if his
amateur
family
move.
went without him, do you think it would be
Yeah.
any? I don't think anyone would even pay attention.
No.
If he stayed home in a fucking tent with muglocks
A
on,
tent.
a beaver hat. I mean, you might as well be in a tent if your fucking house has no heat.
Yeah, I know. Hey, look, in Connecticut, where we used to live, apparently when you moved to Connecticut, you signed some agreement. I don't remember signing it. That said every winter, the power is going to go out at least 4 or 5 times during the winter, and for days at a time. I mean, not just a couple of days. The first winter we were in Connecticut, because all the utilities are above ground, right? So, you know, and they get a lot of storms. Trees come down. And so the next thing you know, the entire town and a bunch of other towns are without power. It is a common occurrence there. But the difference is, as opposed to here in Texas, you're used to it. You're prepared for it. So what happens is you get generators and you get food and you understand it's going to
Fireplace.
happen, right? You
Yeah.
have a fireplace. It's gonna be okay, even if the power is out for 6 or 7 or 8 days, which it is, right? It's not an uncommon occurrence. So, I mean, I remember we didn't have a generator the first winter, right? And I remember looking outside, power was out for a few days. Other people got their lights on, right? And our neighbors were great, and they'd say, "Come on over. You just stay at our house for a few days until And then that's what we would do. And then eventually, my wife, the finest person I know, she said. She knows I'm not that handy, but she said, "You're going to go get a generator for the family, right? Maybe take care of the family." So I went to a Home Depot to buy
You just talked like a foreigner. Home Depot.
What?
What the fuck is a depot?
What is it? Oh,
Dame,
it's a
Jamie,
depot.
talk to
I
him.
heard it. I was going to let it slide.
It's
but
depot.
It's
Home Depot.
Depot.
You fucking foreigner. Jesus Christ.
You go to Home.
Don't
what
they
is it? What
teach
is it?
you
Depot.
in the CIA
You go to Home Depot.
Yeah. Talk like a goddamn American.
All right. So I went there.
I'm an
I was.
American. I was born here, bro.
There I was in my beaver hat, and I went to the Home Depot with my buckskin jacket. And I went, but I went there, and I remember walking in, and I thought I got to buy a generator, and
They're already bought.
well, there was like one left, right?
Yeah.
And the manager, because I approached some guy and I said, "Look, I'm looking to buy a generator," and the guy says, "Well, I'll show you where they are, but I don't think we have any left." And there was a fight going on over the last generator, like we were about to face the zombie apocalypse, right? There was a battle going on in this Home Depot where where they were gonna come to as we used to say, fisticuffs. And so I remember standing there looking at it thinking, "You got to be shitting me." And then I slipped the manager some money, and he took me out back and gave me the last generator.
Really? How much did you have to give him?
Not that much compared to the cost of the generator.
Pretty
Point
sweet.
being, though, is then I had the generator, and then I realized after running it for a while that it needs oil. And I didn't know that until it burned out.
Oh, no.
Yeah, because I'm not that handy. But I guess the point being is we were used to it, right? We didn't have a problem with it. And then you look at what happens in Texas, and I had friends on the East Coast that were saying, "Oh, what a bunch of pussies," right? They're all complaining because they don't. And I said, "Look, it's Texas. When was the last time they had a deep freeze like this, right? It's all what you're used to and what you're prepared to get ready for."
Is.
So I don't know where I was going with that
And
story.
most people around here didn't know how to drive in it, which is, and they
Really?
didn't have the
of course, yeah, that's a good point.
They didn't have the tires for it. They didn't have 4-wheel drive, or if they did have 4-wheel drive, like there's a lot of guys with trucks that were they have these pickup trucks, but they're 2-wheel drive trucks.
Yeah. No, and we get that too. I mean, you'll
Trucks
get
are the worst. They have no
transplants.
fucking weight in the back.
Yeah,
you have to have
like,
sandbags.
You got to put sand
back
back there.
Yeah.
Put at least 100 and 150 pounds of sand in the back, and then you're good. But I mean, we got people that move up to Idaho that particularly from California, that they get that first winter, and we don't plow the roads, right?
Right.
The general feeling is if you don't know how to drive in the snow, then stay home, right? So there's nobody's plowing the roads. So we still get people out there that don't know how to drive.
They don't plow the roads.
No, I mean,
In
if
Idaho?
it's a lot, in Boise, then they'll get out there and they'll give it an effort.
Do you have
right?
like a serious vehicle up there?
Yeah, we've got nothing, but I got a truck.
What do you drive?
It's a GMC.
Some fucking foreign piece of shit.
Oh, it's GMC.
Some Land
Denali.
Rover?
And we got a Suburban. I got a Wagoneer. I got a 91 Wagoneer. I told you that
that's
before.
right.
Yeah.
With the wood panels.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I look pretty fucking good in my
bet you
beaver
do.
hat driving that Wagoneer.
Yeah.
And then I just bought a 1965 MGB.
Oh, really?
From a guy in the UK, from a
One of
vicar.
the little convertible
A
ones?
vicar, yeah. It's a beautiful car.
Man.
1965.
Don't they have like wooden frames or something?
No, there's
That's an old ass car, man.
That's an old car. No, 65 is it's a brilliant piece of machinery, and this one's been yeah.
Look at that.
Well, that's
a sweet little vehicle right
yeah.
there. Look at the wire wheels. Nice.
You Google 1965 MGB. Yes, yeah, you go, and it's
beautiful.
So I'm gonna pick it up in Liverpool.
Oh, look at that black one.
We're gonna drive it
You're
around.
literally
Yeah.
gonna go to England
Yeah,
to
mine
go
is
get it?
that middle. Actually, no, bring it back. Actually, Jamie, I think you got my car.
The green one?
The green one, yeah.
Really? Look at that. That's beautiful.
So I'm gonna take Em over to England. We're gonna drive it around for a while, and
What
then
a
I'm gonna
great
ship it back.
car.
And now this is not a car you drive in the winter in Idaho, but in the summertime, it's gonna be great. And Sluggo, my middle boy, has already claimed it. He said, "When you guys die," he talks like that all the time. "When you guys die, do I get the house?" I think, what the hell?
You better have AAA for that fucking car.
Yeah.
That's a British car, right?
Yeah, it is,
They're not known for their reliability. Why is it? What is it about the Brits where they make shitbag cars? They're your people.
They
Talk to
make
me.
great. They make very solid cars. We made
Well, they make-
made the Spitfire for
they
World War
make
II. I mean,
Great
come on.
cars, but they don't have the best reliability ratings.
You're thinking
Like,
about Italian
I'm-
cars. You're thinking
No.
about Fiats.
Listen,
Yeah.
I'm Italian. I'll tell you right now. I don't buy my people's cars. I don't trust anybody like me to make a fucking car. But the like Land Rover, like they make a fucking hell of a car, but they break all the time.
Yeah.
Like,
No, yeah.
I looked at the new Defender. Have you seen
Yeah.
the new Defender? It's
Get yourself an old Defender. That's what
That
lasts
fucking
forever. That's what
Jesus,
lasts
get
forever.
the fuck out of here. Those things
Yeah.
break constantly.
No,
Yes,
it's like
they
buying
do.
it. It's the difference between buying an old Land Cruiser, Toyota Land Cruiser, and a new Land Cruiser. The old ones, they will stay on the road forever. As long as you take care of them, you
Mike,
got to take care of them.
You're a good guy, but you're
Yeah.
talking out of your ass.
No,
Let
I'm
me
not.
tell you something
No,
right now.
if
You
I
just
could talk
fucked
it-
up and you stepped into my realm.
Yeah, that's going to be
Those
the new thing.
Land
Yeah.
Cruisers are virtually bulletproof. Those fucking things last forever. The old
You
Land
can't
Cruisers,
fix anything on those things.
you don't have to. They don't break. The old Land Cruisers also virtually bulletproof.
Don't you want a
Rain-
car you could fix?
There's an old saying that they used to say when you want, in Australia in particular, if you want to go into the bush, you bring a Range Rover. If you want to get out of the bush, you bring a Land Cruiser.
Yeah.
Because those Range Rovers suck. They're beautiful. They look cool. They like makes it look like you're an artist. Like you got like one of them fucking moleskin notebooks and you're writing deep
Yeah.
thoughts about your soul.
Oh,
But
you're
the
going to solve
reality is-
you're going to solve a murder mystery in a
Yes.
village somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a 100 series, right? Isn't that? Yeah, I have a 80 series.
But that's right there. Look at that. That one right there. That's sweet.
that's
that one's
nice.
going to stay on the road forever.
Nice.
Yeah.
What year is that? That's a 70 series, right? What is that? Yep.
nice, yep.
See, I know my shit. Mm-hmm. I have an 80 series. I have
you
an
do?
80 series. Yeah.
Land Cruiser.
Yeah, 1995. That was
Okay.
it was souped up by Icon, so it's got a supercharged Corvette engine in it.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I was driving it around while everybody was freaking out about the snow. I was like, ha ha! I got locking differentials. You can find mine, Jamie. Find mine in there because it's fucking souped up and it's lifted so it can go over everything, and it's got like a fucking. That's it on the far left. That's it right there.
Yeah.
That's my car. That's it. Yeah. That fucking thing. I loved driving that thing around.
Do you still have it? Or-
Yes,
Oh,
I
okay.
drove it
Yeah.
around during. That's my buddy, Jonathan Ward. He moved out here too. I don't think he wants anybody to know. Too late.
I'm sure it's just between you and me. Nobody else knows.
But that fucking thing, man, you drive that anywhere. It's awesome. I mean, it was so sturdy and sure-footed,
yeah.
and it's got solid axles and front and rear. Look at that supercharged Corvette engine.
In some of our places overseas, Land Cruiser was all we had.
They're the best.
We'd show up somewhere, and that was the sort of the fleet of vehicles that we had available to us to get around.
That's why.
And they're great vehicles, but don't be fucking with the Defender. That's a great
the new
vehicle.
Defender is go Google 2021 Range Rover Defender V8. They have a new one that has 500 plus horsepower. 90 series is the one. It's a fucking beautiful car, but they have literally the worst reliability ratings that are out there. That's a fact.
All right. No, I'm not gonna
look at that. Come on, that's a beautiful goddamn car.
No, it is.
That truck goes 0 to 60 in a little over 4 seconds. 518 horsepower.
You can go over there and pick up a Land Rover and go through their
and
testing
then it'll break
facility.
down before you even get home. You won't even be able to get it back to the fucking factory.
Well, anyway, that fucking 65 MGB is going to be sweet. And yes, you're right.
Sure,
but you know
don't
what
go
I
too
can
far.
do with it? I can also work on it.
Bring your AAA card.
I can jack that thing up and work on it because I don't need a computer system to figure out what's wrong with it.
That's true. That's true. You know it's broken, and there it goes. Replace the engine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know what's going on.
Yeah. Anyway.
They're beautiful cars, and there's some real value to the simplicity of those old cars. Like you could work on the carburetor, you could figure out I'll replace the spark plugs. You could do things to them.
Yeah, I had a '67 Triumph one time that eventually got stolen.
See, you really are a Brit. You like those old shit boxes.
I do like that. Yeah. All right, I give up. You're right.
Like them too, man. I think they're cool. Look at that, man.
I know.
Look at that. God, that's
it's like
beautiful.
driving a go-kart. You're so low to the ground. And
so little too. Look at the little tiny ass tires.
Yeah, no.
God, that's awesome.
They're fun to drive, man.
You know what I really love? That Jaguar E-Type. The long front nose, like a fucking Barracuda.
Now those are, I will admit, those are always in need of repair. Yeah.
Constant.
Yeah.
Constant. Yeah. I think they've got the new ones dialed in though. The new Jaguars.
It's made by Ford.
Yeah. But for whatever reason, they can't figure out the new Range Rovers. They still break down. There's a YouTube channel that I follow that reviews trucks, and they, God, I can't remember the name of the channel. These guys, I believe they're from, I don't even know where the fuck they're from, but they bought the base model Range Rover Defender, and they got the 4-cylinder one, the cheapest one you can get with the metal wheels, and it broke down almost immediately after having it, and it took like more than a month for them to get it repaired. And this is a brand new truck. These guys, the fast lane, so their fucking Defender broke down like right away. The guy's laughing his ass off. This guy, he's a really good reviewer on YouTube. He's got an awesome channel. It's really, really informative and well thought out. But
what's
they
it called?
had
It's called
the Fast Lane.
The Fast Lane. Okay.
The Fast Lane, and most of it is our third brand new Land Rover Defender, but will it be our last? Because they kept breaking down. Yeah. These fucking things. They had a fly sewing in from England to fix it.
Well, that's inexpensive, and
because they just couldn't. And also, when you got a channel that has millions of views on their reviews, and you sell them a fucking shitty lemon, and it keeps breaking down, like you've made a mistake.
It's not good. Yeah,
they have the worst reliability ratings, and it's unfortunate because other than that, like I don't know what corners they're cutting where their stuff sucks. Because the engineering and everything, the design is amazing.
I tell you what, we've been happy.
7,000 miles.
My wife drives
broke?
My wife drives a Suburban. Right now, it's like what is it? A 2019, I think, and we needed something we could throw all the sports gear in for the kids, right? And like haul all of them and the dogs and everything around, and it's been amazingly reliable. I'll say that much. I never had a Suburban before, but it's been probably the best vehicle we've owned in terms of just reliability, right?
Yeah, those new GM cars are far better than the old ones. Like a perfect example is the new GM Corvette. That new Chevy Corvette is fucking incredible. That's an incredible car. It's the best value sports car you can get. It's a mid-engine American supercar, and it's super reliable and really well engineered. I mean, they went above and beyond. For a long time, they worked on that goddamn thing, and they made a masterpiece. That new Corvette, look at that thing.
Yeah,
that is a masterpiece.
No,
it's an amazing car.
They went through a dark period.
Look at that thing,
Corvette.
man. That thing's it's fucking
Yeah.
gorgeous too.
Yeah.
It looks like a Ferrari.
Well, that's what I was going to say. There was a period of time where, but again, American design cars went through a period.
That thing though, come on.
Remember when every
That's beautiful.
we had a '69 Camaro for a while, but there was a period where Camaros, Firebirds, Trans Ams all looked alike.
Oh
Remember
yeah,
that?
when
Where
they got into the 70s and the
Yeah.
80s, they were dog shit.
Yeah.
But that's a magical vehicle. They really came out of, and the interior was always like the big thing about go click on one of the photos of the interior, Jamie, because that was always like the big criticism. That
Right.
interior is amazing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful. And the new one, the 2022, is supposed to be even better looking than that.
What's the price on that?
It's not bad. I think the base model $60,000.
Seriously?
Yes.
It's like an SUV,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
for a car that looks that good and is that fast, I mean, it's ridiculously fast. And because it's mid-engine, all the weight is above the rear wheels. So it's really well balanced. It handles fantastic. I mean, they have rave reviews all throughout, the internet and all these different websites. They nailed it.
Yeah. No, what's your favorite car you've had?
I have a 1965 Corvette. It's probably my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd give them all up except for that one.
Yeah.
If I had to give them all up, I'd keep that.
I think I've seen that. You had that parked one time at your
Yes,
old place.
at
Yeah.
the Comedy
Yeah.
Store too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that
nice.
fucking thing is. It's just.
Yeah.
It's just the perfect little car. It's like it's fun. But if I had to choose one car to drive, if you said you can only drive one car, it would be my Tesla. Because that's
Really?
oh yeah, it's it makes other cars seem like they're foolish, like they're dumb. Have you ever driven one?
No, I've never.
You should drive one.
Yeah. No, I've never actually been inclined to even think about.
They're so fast.
Tesla, yeah.
They're so fast you can't believe it. You can't believe it. It goes 0 to 60 in 2.4 seconds.
God.
That's 2 seconds faster than that new Corvette. That's how 1
Really?
second. 1 second faster.
Yeah.
New Corvette's under 4 seconds. But it's preposterous how fast it is.
Yeah, that's one area I can't even speak about because I have not been in a Tesla. I haven't.
They'll fuck with your head.
Yeah.
They'll fuck with your head because
Yeah.
they do things in a way that you go, why don't other cars work? Don't you feel the same
I
way?
was gonna say mine's all back. Go show them real quick. Come back.
Mine's all back too.
Okay.
Mine's back there too.
There's
Yeah.
an EV Corvette coming out. It says.
Yeah, what it's going to be is a hybrid.
makes sense.
They're going to have
Yeah.
electrical motors in the front, and I think they're going to still have the mid-engine, but it's going to be like the Acura NSX, which is like a hybrid. They
This
have
is
electrical
not
motors.
it though. I'm trying to figure out the difference.
1,000 horsepower Corvette Zora is in the works. Oh Jesus, everyone's going to die.
Does that say a stop order on future car development?
Well,
rules?
my
Oh,
boy,
okay, yeah,
my boy
yeah.
John Hennessy already takes a regular Corvette, and I think he jacks it up to 1,000 horsepower. Go to Hennessy's Corvette. I have a Hennessy Raptor.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
that's
That's my Texas truck. I had to get one when I moved here, just to show that I'm fucking committed
Yeah.
to being a Texan.
you gotta have a pickup truck.
I had to get it's
You
my
gotta have a
first pickup truck I've ever
yeah.
owned in my life.
Really?
Yeah,
I will say probably
Here
if I
it
look
is.
at it.
this is the Hennessy C8 Corvette. He's got 1,000 horsepower Corvette. Watch how fast this thing passes. Come the fuck on! Come on, that to me, that's an eagle strangling a terrorist.
Yeah.
That's America.
Did you see the thing on it?
Hennessy's awesome. He does some come and take it. He's got the
Yeah.
cannon on it. Look at the first 200-mile rodeo.
That's crazy.
yeah, Generation 5 Z01, 203.9 miles per hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, he makes some wild shit.
See, I got weird taste. I mean, I the pickup that I've got now, I really like. I'm a big fan, and I think a pickup truck is always a great option. But ever since I was a kid, I've never owned one. I've looked at a lot of them. I've come close to buying them, but this is going to sound weird. But the car that I've always wanted to buy is a '56 Bel Air.
Oh, it's a beautiful car.
It's a beautiful car.
It's a beautiful car.
There's something about sort of the excess of that period of time, right?
Yeah.
Where it was just like it was all about like melding the car design with airplanes and just that whole idea. And
Yeah.
oh God. Yeah. But I've never found one that I thought, yeah, I'm going to buy this one.
I saw a
Yeah.
55 the other day that was souped up. That was at this auto shop that I get my repairs done at in Austin, and it was amazing. It's just such a just the boxiness, but the chrome bumpers
Oh,
and the
God.
shape.
Yeah.
It's
just it's
gorgeous-
fantastic. It's
gorgeous
a different
car.
world, right?
Yeah.
And it's you know, but
inefficient.
it's yeah,
Nonsense.
yeah, it is
Yeah,
nonsense.
but they're so beautiful.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I go to car shows and I'm always looking around and
Look at that.
Yeah.
Fuck. Look at that.
I know.
God,
see,
that's
look
beautiful.
at that. Tell me that's not beautiful.
Is that a
Exactly.
56, Jamie?
Oh God,
God, that's
yeah.
so pretty. That is so pretty.
Everything about it, just sort of the it's just so fucking excess, but it's just gorgeous, and the color schemes they had back then, just crazy.
You know who made a really killer one? Who the fuck was it that made a really killer one? Somebody made one for rides. It was Google 55 Corvette. No, 55. Oh, excuse me, 55 Bel
look at
Air
this.
for rides, for the TV show Rides. They did it. I'm trying to remember who the fuck designed it. But there's a difference, right, between a car that you have like for transportation and a car that's really just pure
Yes.
enjoyment,
Yeah. No,
and
absolutely.
fun,
Yeah.
and that's what that is at
Yeah.
this point.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. You've got to have something that you know is always going to be reliable. It's not going to break down. It's always going to be there.
Yeah.
But then the fun of cars is, I think, is in part is just sort of the quirks that each one brings. You know, and I will say, I keep going back to the same thing. It's just the ability to work on a car as opposed to I got to take it in. I got to have the diagnostics figured out, and I got you know, I don't know. It's just, but it's yeah. I always said if I had enough money, that's kind of where all the money would go.
Is that a Rides car? God,
Wow,
that's pretty.
Look at that.
Look at that thing. My God.
Fucking paint job on that.
Amazing.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's a statement, right? It's not just
Yeah.
a car. It's like a love letter to American automotive engineering from the 1950s. There's just something about
No, look, that's optimism, right? That's in that time. That shows you what sort of the mindset was, right? We're launching off to the unknown, right? We're going to the moon. We're gonna whatever it is. There's this concept that says it's not just about utility, right?
Yeah.
There's something more there. There's a belief in what we're moving towards. But boy, that was deep.
I remember who had it now. Yeah, that was
That
deep.
was deep.
Christopher Titus, the comic, he had one.
He had a Bel Air.
Yeah, I think he has a 55 that he had made for rides. My buddy Bud Brutzman's show. Is that it? Yeah. That's it. And look at that. That one is super customized.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
That is some heavy work on that. I don't. Yeah.
That's a Chip Foose car. Chip Foose designed it. and-
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, that is a goddamn. I believe he sold it, but that's a gorgeous car. Gorgeous car. Look at that thing.
God.
My God.
Jeez.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah. That's not a Kia. That's
Perfect
not a-
55.
Yeah.
It's
I'm not
very
going out.
customized,
I'm not
though.
buying a Camry.
That's very customized, though. That's
yeah.
very. There's a lot going on with that car that doesn't. Look at
Yeah.
that thing. Oh my God. That one right there. Look at that. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. The retro mod industry's really, come
Yeah.
on big. You see a lot of this in the shows nowadays, and sometimes it's tough. I mean, if you're looking for something that's just straight up from the numbers and is legit, it's tough to find sometimes because this is
people
kind of
do
where
that. Yeah.
people are going that direction. But anyway, so yeah, we're gonna go over to England. I'll probably stop at the Home Depot and outside of London, pick up some duct tape and some extra wire, then pick up the MGB, drive around, wait for it to break.
Do you have someone that can inspect the car for you over there to make sure that it's okay?
Yeah, I got folks over there. I got an office over there, and so I got some people that happy to go up. But I had talked to these guys for a while. I've been looking for this particular car for a long time.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of crap, right? And so, but this literally had been owned by a vicar and garage held forever, right? And there was
Right.
just not a bit of rust on this thing. All the lines, the seams are perfect. It's really good. But the problem has been trying to get over there. I was going to go over and towards the end of last year to pick it up. I've delayed that trip several times. This sounds like a 1% problem, but it's anyway. So we'll go over.
You're all vaccinated up, right?
I am, yeah.
Did you get
Yeah.
both shots?
I got both shots. I did the Moderna thing. I got
the second shot kick your
second
ass?
shot. Yeah, I did it 2 weeks ago. And I've never had never had a reaction to anything, right? Any sort of flu shot or vaccine that, and the agency used to pump us full of all sorts of stuff.
What did they pump
Take
you
it,
up
it'll be
for?
fine. Here, go downstairs. They used to
Nothing
send us
ever
down
got
to the office of medical services downstairs to get some shots to go some shithole somewhere. And you never questioned it, you know.
Right.
You're always like, yeah, whatever. But I never had a reaction to anything. And the docs used to say, well, this might lay you out for a while, and it'll be fine. So, anyway, long story short, a couple of weeks ago, I get the second shot of Moderna, and I go in, and they said, well, stick around for 15, 20 minutes, see if you have a reaction or whatever. And,
See if you die.
Yeah, if you die, right, you're gonna fall into a seizure or whatever. I didn't, so I went home, and I was like, yeah, I'm fine. Got together with some friends that night because it's Idaho, so we can actually get together with outside of our bubble, and we drank. And I woke up the next morning. I thought, I got a hangover, right, from the too much red wine or whatever. And then the rest of that day, 24 hours, my fever was spiking from like 103 down to 96. Right, I mean, I was going from 103 to 96 in a matter of an hour and a half or so. It was very odd. For 24 hours, it just laid me out, and that was it then. And after that, I was fine, no problems. But it's the same thing I've heard from just about everybody else I've talked to that have taken that second shot. They say, yeah, about 24 hours, you just feel like shit.
What about younger folks? You know any younger folks that got it?
I try not to socialize with younger folks.
I'm curious. It's like,
Makes me sound like Wilford Brimley.
I was watching this video where Ben Stein was on the internet, and he was talking about how bad he got wrecked by the second shot. But Ben Stein is like 80, right? I mean, he was a writer, speechwriter
exactly.
for Nixon.
Yeah, Bueller.
Yeah.
Bueller.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ferris
He's been
Bueller.
around a long time. I'm trying to think. Actually, that's not true. I do know some folks in their 40s, early 40s.
How'd they do?
They also said the same thing. In fact, one of the guys, I got the shots because I was doing some work for a company that's considered to be a whatever they call it, a critical infrastructure company. And so they put me on their list of people that they wanted to have because they were given a certain number of vaccines. So they said, would you mind getting on the list? And so I said, fine. But I remember some of their folks, probably late 30s and early 40s, they all said the same thing, which is that, the second shot knocked them on their ass. It varied a little bit, a couple of days, maybe 3 days. They all had sort of the same thing, fever, chills, aches, flu symptoms, right, basically.
Right.
And again, I didn't think anything of it because I haven't had a reaction in the past. But, it was, it was kind of shitty. But, I mean, I've got some... I had a heart attack, right? I've had cancer, right? So I was happy to get it, right? Because I don't want to, you hear the stories about people who, get COVID and they've had other issues in the past.
Right.
Okay, fine. I felt like, and at my age, whatever I am, 48, I feel like, so I felt like I'm going to get it. And it wasn't that bad, right? In the scheme of things, I don't want to sound like a whiner. It really wasn't that bad. It was 24 hours of feeling like shit, big deal.
And then the next day you're fine?
Yeah, I was fine. And then,
Did you work out at all afterwards?
Yeah, the next
How'd you
day.
feel?
Yeah, I felt fine. I actually felt. I feel better if I work out. In fact, I tried to work out that day when I felt like shit because you kind of get moving, right? And you feel,
Right.
what it's. I mean, and. I went upstairs. We got a home gym, and I tried, and I thought, oh, fuck that, I can't do it, because it's just the temperature changes were just like really screwing with me. But, it is interesting. I've been surprised by the number of people who don't want to take it, right? Who are disinclined, and included in that number are healthcare people, right? Who are saying, I'm going to give it a pass.
Yeah.
So. I think that surprised a lot of people, right? The general public, and that doesn't send a good message to the general public when they see healthcare, professionals saying, I think I'm going to give this a miss, and everybody's got to make that decision. For me, it was like, fine, fuck it, I'll take it. And again, maybe I'm too simplistic, but it's fine. And my wife has got the first shot. She's going to get the second shot at some point here, I think, the next couple of weeks. So it'll be interesting to see because she's somewhat younger than I am.
And then there's that Johnson & Johnson one where you take one shot, but it's not as effective.
Yeah, and that's interesting because, again, I think people need to go in, and it's just like with everything else. Regardless of what you're reading, you need to figure out what the outlet is, right? Because there is no doubt. I keep going back to the same thing. I sound like I'm beating a fucking dead horse, but the FSB, the Russian intel service, is engaged in a covert action campaign right now to denigrate the U.S. manufactured vaccines. So I'm not saying there's not legit information out there that says, you should think about it. Maybe it's not right for you. Fine. But at least know what the hell you're reading, right? And pay attention to what the sources of information are that you're getting. And until that day when we all can figure out what the intent is immediately, yeah, I mean, pay attention to what you're doing. Whether you're reading about foreign policy or domestic politics or the vaccine, just fucking pay attention.
What's weird is that they want you to take the vaccine even if you've already had COVID and you have the antibodies. That's weird.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. Like, Jamie's got strong antibodies. Jamie got he caught COVID in October. He was barely sick. He didn't even think he had COVID. He thought he had a sinus infection. Jamie, speak for yourself.
Still strong with antibodies now.
Strong. Like
thick
fucking
line.
Ronnie Coleman strong.
Yeah.
Like, we looked at his antibodies, fucking thick, fat line. Today, I mean, here we are. What is it, March, what, the 12th or something? What is today?
Today's the
9th?
Today's
March,
the 9th. March 9th.
March 9th.
Good
Over
God.
5 months.
5 months, strong antibodies. The kid's a freak. Look at him.
Yeah,
Look
well-
at him.
Well, I mean, yeah,
Goddamn
it's a picture
specimen.
of health, right?
Specimen.
It's got me, God.
But, I mean, why would anybody tell him that he has to take a vaccine? That's a thing that keeps coming up. Even
Well,
if
I'll be
you've
honest
had
with
COVID.
you. I didn't know that was the advice. I thought they were saying you don't need to get in line for the vaccine if you've already had it. I didn't know that.
No, they're telling people even if you've had the vaccine, or if you've had COVID, you should still take the vaccine. And I don't necessarily think I understand that.
Yeah, I would think they'd be pushing people who have tested positive, like Jamie, who now has superpowers, that they would push them to the back of the line basically and say, yeah. You know what, I'm not going to prioritize you for the vaccine because that actually doesn't make sense. Look, you think about the population in the U.S. that's had COVID already, and then you think about the numbers that have been vaccinated, and you got to think, okay, is that line shifting? That line that where we thought a year ago, we get to this number, we're approaching herd immunity or whatever they call it. You would think we're almost there, right? And I don't know.
They think we are approaching it. They think we're gonna hit it somewhere around the end of April. That Fauci guy needs to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
As much as he's an expert and God bless him, but he keeps saying that. One of the things he said that made me angry. He said, "We're never gonna shake hands again."
Yeah.
We're never going to go
Fuck
back to
that.
shaking hands
Right.
again.
Yeah.
I never stopped.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you saying? Wash your hands.
Yeah.
It's not shaking your hand is not going to kill people. Stop saying things like that.
Yeah.
He says too many things that he takes back, and too many things that, like, he said in the beginning that masks don't work, and now he's saying wear 2 masks. Like, come on, man.
I think he's become a little enamored of the limelight, right? I think he's and that's a natural human thing, I think, but I think I'm not saying that he's not, he's a scientist, right? Fine, great, okay, hey, believe science, but I'm just saying, human condition is,
he's a human.
The attention has been not unattractive to him, and so then some of the things he says. And I think that's been part of the problem for the general population is the inconsistency of messaging. And I think part of that is because people are starting to realize, like, look, medicine's not a fucking black and white issue, right? It's not a science. And it is a science, but it's not consistent well, it's a science,
across all human beings.
Right. But it's not. Look, there's a lot of educated guesses that go on in medicine.
Yes.
Right. I had a stress test, I had a full workout for my heart, and they said, whatever you're doing, keep doing. You're in great shape. God bless you.
Eating a lot of steaks.
I eat a lot of steaks.
Do you?
I like red meat. I'm not going to lie. I like red meat.
Me too. Keep talking. Let me
Good
take my
protein,
pants
man. Oh, yeah. We're going to start talking about elk. Elk porn. And but then a week later, I have a widowmaker on an airplane, right? Just drop on an airplane.
What do you mean?
I was going to Puerto Rico to give a speech at a conference. And thank God Emily was with me. We were flying. They said, look, you're coming down to Puerto Rico. It's a really nice place. Stay for a few days afterwards, So all I got to do is give a, stupid talk for a little while and, something boring. And they said, hang out. So Emily came with me. We were going to have a really great time. We passed through DFW, through Dallas. We got to the airport in Dallas, waited for the connection, got on the connection, going to Puerto Rico. Get on the plane, sit there. They wind up the engines, move off to the taxi. They get to the runway. They literally pointing down the runway, winding up the engines. And I look at them and I go, I'm not feeling that and that was the last thing I said. I didn't even get the word good out. And I just collapsed, right? I was done.
How long ago was this?
This was 3 years ago. And I had a week before, I had a stress test where they'd said, everything's good, man. You look good. And I got a family that's got a history of heart concerns, right? So that's why I was in for the stress tests. And if my wife hadn't been with me, I would have died on that plane, because everyone would have thought, you know, how the engines wind up and you get ready and people fall asleep. It's just, you know, it's a white noise. And so, but she jumped up and said, get this fucking plane back to the gate. And one of the attendants said, would he like some orange juice? Because, I mean, she probably thought I was diabetic or something, and I passed out. And according to a couple of doctors on the plane who came to visit me afterwards, they said my wife was very funny. She said, he doesn't want any fucking orange juice. Get back to the fucking gate. So we got to the gate. Luckily, the Baylor, the Grapevine Institute, the Heart Institute, is like 7 minutes away, right? I couldn't have been luckier. And so we get back to the gate. They get me off the plane. I wake up on a hospital bed, staring up at the doctor, who's like right there in my face, right? And I come to, and he says, he's very funny, but he says, you know how you can avoid this in the future? And I'm like, where the fuck am I? Is this like, you know, have I gone to the afterlife and this is what it is? I'm, you know, talking to a doctor. And he says, have different parents. And then he laughed, right? That was the first thing I saw when I woke up. Yeah, no, he was funny. He's a great guy, great doctor. Thank God he was there. But anyway, but point being is that what I learned from that episode, and then the subsequent treatment and all the other things that go on with it, I should have known before, because I'm old enough to be pragmatic, but a lot of medicine is educated guesses, right? And yet the general population, right, has grown up to believe that medicine is science, is definite, is black and white. Here's your answer. And that's not the way it is. And I think it's natural that with a pandemic like this, of course there's going to be, it's not misinformation, it's just inconsistent messaging, because we're still figuring it out, right? So it's not medicine's fault. It's just the way it is. But that creates this distrust among the public, because they're anticipating that it's all going to be clear, right? You're going to get the exact answer that you want, and it's going to be right. And it's not. So we've had this period of time over this year where people kind of wig up, and you get these different sides arguing about things. We're just trying to figure it the fuck out. So do the smart thing. Just try to be responsible, right? But don't expect that, you know, medicine is going to give you the answers right off the bat and it's going to be correct. Just like, don't fucking turn to the federal government. I don't know where I'm going with this, but don't turn to the federal government for all your answers. And, you know, don't buy an MGB and expect it to work.
And or a Range Rover, expect it to make it out of the woods.
Yeah.
So when you had this heart attack, what advice they give you in terms of like how do you keep from having one again?
Well, they put me on blood thinners. That was a big part of it.
So did you have like some sort of a clot or something?
I did. I had my one side was entirely blocked.
Whoa.
Right. Yeah. And so that's what they call the widowmaker, when and it's just like, it just happens. But
did they tell you to resume cardio or to have more cardio?
Yeah, I went into some, you know, sort of very slow. It was very funny because they put me in this program where I show up and I'm basically, it's an exercise program. So I would go there 4 days a week, and everybody in there was at least like 25 years older than I was, right? And I'm not young, but they were all in there, and so they'd kind of be walking around the track, and I'm hooked up, and I'm walking around with these guys. I made some great friends, frankly, you know. So some of these guys were fantastic, and so you go there. I actually was looking forward to it. You know, I go and have coffee with Fred, and Fred's, you know, 89 years old, and we'd have a great time talking, but they'd be looking at me like I was 20 years old, which I kind of enjoyed, right? Because I'm the youngest guy in there. But it was a lot of, you know, build back up your level. Now I work out just like I did before, right? But the interesting thing is that they basically now, when you go in and you say, because there was some talk about, well, let's do the other side, meaning let's get in there and clear it out, put a couple of stents on the other side and make sure you're all good. But they're like, well, you know, you talk to one cardiologist and they said, maybe we should. And the other said, maybe we shouldn't because there's a risk if we go in there. So maybe we just wait. And then their answer is always kind of like, well, if you start to feel anything, then, you know, we'll go in there and we'll intervene. And you think, well, I didn't feel anything before.
Right.
So
it just came out of nowhere.
But again, being fairly pragmatic, I'm thinking, well, that's life, right? There's no fucking guarantees. I don't have a problem with that.
Change your perspective at all? Like having a widowmaker experience where you almost died. Did you get out of that saying, you know, like where you like, not to be cliche, but every day is a gift, like that kind of shit?
Yeah. I mean, look, I had a stretch of time with the heart situation, I also had colon cancer, right?
Yeah.
Because I did what a lot of guys do. I thought I put off the colonoscopy, and I put it off. You're supposed to start when you're 50, I think, is the general advice. And I was thinking, like, I have no interest in going in and getting a colonoscopy. It just doesn't. It's not the sort of thing that. So I always found a reason to put it off. Well, I put it off for like 5 years, and then finally, my wife said, "No, you got to go and get it done." For no reason. It's just I wasn't feeling bad or anything. She said, "You got to go get it done." So I went in. It turns out it's nothing, right? If my one piece of advice to anybody as a dude, to other guys, is go get your fucking colonoscopy, because you don't even know it's happening. And it's not like some sort of prison situation. You're fine, right? You're going to wake up. You have no idea it happened, but get it done when you turn 50. Start doing that. And
why is it with guys? Like, what is it about guys
I
that
have
get
no
colon
idea.
cancer?
I have no idea. I mean, I probably should have researched it afterwards, but I remember going in, getting it, and then I'm still doped up, right? And so I kind of wake up, and I'm aware that M's standing there talking to the doctor, who turned out to be a great doctor. She's fantastic. And they're talking, but I don't know what they're talking about. So then we go from there, and I go immediately to another part of the hospital to get some tests done, some scans and everything. And then I get some more tests done. And then I go home, and I'm happy as a clam, right? Because I'm still lubed up, right? I'm still just, I've got whatever anesthesia they use, and I'm feeling pretty good. And I go upstairs. I say, I want to take a nap. I wake up from my nap a couple hours later, and I'm happy as a clam. I'm going to go outside and do some work. And Em says, you don't have no idea what's going on, do you? And I said, no. So it turns out I had cancer, and they'd scheduled me already. I had to go in and get they'd take a section of your colon out, right? It turns out we got like 6 feet everybody's got like 6 feet of whatever, colon, or again, I'm not a doctor. But they had to take out a section of it, do the surgery. And I'm like, yeah, I had no idea until it was explained to me. So you go in and you do all of that, and then you got a period of time where you got to go through some treatment and everything. But again, you can sit and you can think about it, and you can go, oh my God, why? I don't have no history of that in my family.
Just happened.
Just happened. As they said, it was an outlier.
Do you take vitamins? Do you go in the sauna? Do you do anything to take care of yourself?
I'm a healthy guy. I mean, in the sense, I mean, I watch, I eat red meat, but I watch my diet.
Red meat's not bad for you.
No, I exercise a lot. I've got an active lifestyle. I do all those things, right?
There's a lot of people that try to make correlations between red meat being bad for you, but they're all from epidemiology studies where people are eating cheeseburgers and fries and shakes. And
exactly.
If you're just eating steak and vegetables, that's normal human food. I mean, people have been eating meat since the beginning of people.
Yeah, I haven't changed. I know it sounds weird, but after the heart attack, after the cancer thing, I haven't changed my diet because I had a good diet before, right? I wasn't.
Did anybody try talking to being a vegan?
Nobody that knows me well. Nobody. I got some nieces who are very serious vegans, and they're up and they're like they're like a religious zealot, right?
Yeah.
There's nobody more obnoxious than somebody who's adapted a religion, right? They get zealous about it.
Right.
Vegans kind of can be the same way. God bless them. They want to do that. That's fine. Don't get up in my face about it. Yeah, I got some family.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's an interesting psychological thing. Because they just want to show everybody that they're doing the right thing, and they really do believe in it. It's weird. I have a friend who's a vegan who's a real asshole. He's such a shitty person to other people that aren't vegans. It's like, isn't it supposed to be all about kindness? Meanwhile, you're just a terrible person to people.
It's like a lot of other things, right? It's just like, it's like wearing a mask. Fine. I don't care about wearing a mask. I'll wear a mask, but don't get up in my face about.
Well, there's things that happen where people use those opportunities as it's a moment for them to yell at folks. It's a moment for them to be righteous and,
Yeah, never underestimate the strength of the power of someone feeling righteous and smarter than anybody else. And again, but to answer your question about every day a gift and everything, you know what? I kind of felt that way before, right? I've said, I've seen my family go, and I've seen, siblings and good friends. And so I always felt like, every day's a gift, but I don't think you need some sort of life-changing moment if your priorities are right to think that.
Well,
right?
some people, that life-changing moment, though, is just enough of a jolt to just let you know, like, this is real. Because sometimes we all know we're going to die, but it's not something you dwell on. But when you almost die,
Yeah.
Don't you dwell on it more?
For a little while, I tell you what, the one reaction to the heart attack on the plane was getting on other planes, right? And I got to travel a lot, for my line of work, and so there was that moment where I get on a plane because you feel like, okay, I got no choice. If I'm sitting on a 13-hour flight, right. And I'm halfway through it, I'm fucked if something else happens, right? So there was that side of it, but otherwise, no. There was no come to Jesus moment where I thought, oh my God, I will say this, I don't dwell on death, but I do find myself this sounds really odd, but I find myself sometimes thinking, I just want. Just give me 25 more years, or give me 30 more years, or whatever. Because
what do you plan on doing in those 30 years?
Well, you know what? Nothing. I just want to see my kids grow up.
And you don't want to leave them behind. And leave them sad.
It's like what's that old line from Butch Cassidy, the Sundance Kid? Butch said, I always thought when I grow up I was going to be a hero. I don't think that I'm going to be a hero when I grow up, right? But I want to see my kids grow up. That to me is the driver. I got young kids, right? I got young boys, right? So I want to see them grow up.
You know what line I thought you were going to say?
What?
When they're about to jump off the cliff.
Yeah.
One of them goes, "I can't swim." He goes, "Doesn't matter. The fall's probably going to kill you anyway."
Fall's going to kill you. Yeah. So many good lines out of that movie. Yeah, I know.
That's a great movie.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I don't think anybody under 40 actually remembers that movie.
No. It's a great movie.
Oh God, it was funny. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of those movies, man, from those days, and people they told stories different back then.
Yeah. Yeah, there was more character development and fewer explosions.
It wasn't influenced by these studies, these focus groups that are trying to figure out what people tune into and what people don't tune into. They were just trying to tell a story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was, and you could develop the story in a slower fashion.
Yeah.
Right. There wasn't, in part because I go back to what we were talking about, the access to information, right? It's created shorter attention spans, right?
Yeah. It's too much.
Yeah. And so people want that answer right away. They want satisfaction right away. They want, I'm going to buy something, I'm going to buy it right away. I want the story to get over with, so I can move on to the next one. I'm going to binge watch something. And so yeah, I think there was something to that. I mean, there were a lot of bad movies made in the old days, but I mean, a lot of them did allow for more dialogue, more story development, more character development.
They appreciated and respected your intelligence enough that you could sit and watch something. A couple years back, it's been a couple years, but a couple years back, I watched Le Mans with Steve McQueen.
Yes.
And the beginning of the movie, there's no dialogue for a long ass time.
Yeah.
For a long ass time, it's just setting up this.
Yeah,
this
That's
scenario.
A great movie. That's
fucking
a great movie.
Great movie.
Oh God,
great movie. And you realize like what those guys had to go through back then, driving those race cars in the 1960s.
Yeah,
those things were death traps.
Yeah, death traps and a lot of physical work.
Oh
right?
yeah,
I mean, you were beat to hell by the time you finished.
Well, Le Mans is 24 hours.
Yeah,
you're driving for a full day. I mean, that's part of what the race was about, was your mental endurance.
Yeah, that's a good result. If all this does is get people to watch Le Mans, or Butch Cassidy, that's great. That's a great result.
China.
Yeah, pay attention to China. Yeah. No, going back to, I did want to touch on the Syria thing because I think it is important. Because
what is going on over there?
Well, I think it's interesting for a couple of reasons, but one is just I found interesting was the realization amongst a lot of people that we still had troops over in Iraq, right? Mm-hmm. That seemed to catch a lot of people off guard because what happened was there's eastern Syria where we did the airstrikes just a couple of weeks ago. We struck a facility that is essentially a hub, a center for transportation of fighters, foreign fighters, and money and hardware, weapons that the Iranians have set up. The Iranians have basically created a transportation system from Tehran to all the way to Beirut, right, in their effort to try to control the region. And so you had this eastern Syria outpost with Iranian-backed militia, and they were engaged in occasional attacks against U.S. and coalition forces, right? So they were lobbing missiles, and there were a couple of incidents where we lost contractors and some coalition members, and so essentially what happened was the Biden administration, I think correctly so, said, okay, look, we got to do something. We got to send a message. And so they did. They struck a facility there run by some Iranian-backed militia. But the news that it was because of the attacks that they were committing on U.S. forces in Iraq, that's the interesting part, because it caught people by surprise. And they go like, what the fuck? We still got people in Iraq? Because we've gone well beyond that time when, support our troops. Wounded warrior, and it was always, the ads up there, and everybody thought about it, right? But it's been, I think about how many years it's been, right? And so I think we've forgotten that we don't have many, but we still have troops over there. And so it raised an interesting question, which is an important one to talk about, I think, which is, why are we still over there? Or what are we doing over there? Or what's our end game? What's our reason for being, right? And, look, 19 years, 20 years since we've been in Afghanistan, as an example, and what's the point? And so I think that's a legitimate conversation to have, regardless of where you fall on the answer. I think it's a good question to have, and we should be talking about it. But we don't, because we get wrapped up in domestic politics, or we get wrapped up in COVID, or whatever it is. So occasionally something like that happens that causes people to shift their focus outside of their bubble and outside the U.S. and think about what the hell else is going on in the world. And that's, from my perspective anyway, that's a good thing, right? Because there is a lot happening over there.
But it's just shocking how little coverage there is.
Yeah,
and how much coverage there is about Ted Cruz wanting to go to Cancun, right?
Yeah,
if you look at the difference, that was in the front center of the media. That was the thing they were talking about the most.
That was all, because and they know that. Look, most journalism now is on social media, in a sense, right? So it's all about getting clicks on your story, which is why headlines are so sensational. Oftentimes don't line up with the actual story, then, right? Because all you want to do is you want to get people clicking on it, right? And are talking about it, and that's the way that the journalism gets driven forward. So. Yeah, it's no surprise that Ted Cruz in Cancun.
Ted Kuhn? Oh,
I was combining Cancun and Ted Cruz. I came up with Ted Kuhn. I'm not saying not to go with it, but so that's why that gets the attention. And airstrikes in Syria, you're not going to get the clicks on that, right? People aren't going to go, that's interesting.
It's outrageous to see Ted Cruz in the middle of a crisis that's happening in Texas, his state. He's a senator. He decides to leave the state and go to a resort in Mexico.
Yeah, that's going to get more clicks and likes.
You son of a bitch.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's from again, that it makes sense why certain stories drive a narrative, right? Because people have a very short attention span, limited time in their day to gather information. They're going to go for the salacious thing, and so Cruz in Cancun, why not? Syria, it's too complicated.
It's too complicated, and it's also so far away. It's hard for people to wrap their heads around it.
Yeah. But it is, it will be very interesting to see where this administration goes. Again, God bless them. I hope they do well. We should have hoped that the Trump administration did well. We should, You
should always hope they do well, because if they do well, we do well.
Exactly.
The problem is when people don't want them to do well. Like I was hearing people saying that they wanted the economy to tank so it would get people to realize that Trump's a fraud. Like, why the fuck would you want the economy to tank?
Yeah.
It's like even if you hate Trump, you'd want him to do well, because then the country does well.
Yeah, it seems like a simple equation.
Yeah,
but
you don't know the guy.
Yeah.
It's not like you talk to him every day.
Yeah.
Oh, this dick again. Like, just stop watching CNN.
Yeah,
you won't be so angry.
Well, the problem is access to instantaneous information. That's the problem.
Isn't it weird how they're taking out Cuomo now?
Oh, New York. Although with New York, you're probably one more sexual harassment allegation away from opening up New York, getting the restaurants open. And so I think they're probably hoping one more woman will show up and say, but
de Blasio doesn't want anything to be open up. That fucking moron.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, although it's interesting to see the dynamic, right, with Cuomo and de Blasio. They've never seen eye to eye. They've always been kind of going at each other, and de Blasio sees this as a moment.
Yes.
Right? And I think he felt like he was probably done, right? Nobody really wants him as mayor in New York, the people that are in New York. And so he probably sees this as a possible entrance ramp to the governor's slot, right? He might be able to make his well. I mean,
everybody hates him.
Everybody hates him, but look, you know.
Do you see that video that he
stranger
put out?
things have happened in politics. You know, so
I don't know about that.
It's people, but
that's pretty strange. Even liberals don't like De Blasio. Did you see that video that he put about bringing the arts back to New York?
Yes.
Did you see that with the bad dancing, the out of sync music, and the uncoordinated dancing? That was the weirdest thing ever. That was like that was a part of a Coen Brothers movie. That's what that was like. That was like the Big Lebowski. Like you're watching this, you're like, what am I seeing?
I just watched that again the other night.
Fuck, that movie's good.
It's so fucking good.
Such a good movie, man. You know what I watched the other night?
A lot of my friends
I
face down in the muck. Died. Chinaman. I don't think you're supposed to say Chinaman. There's so many good things in that movie.
Great movie. You know what I watched the other night that's a great movie that I kind of forgot how good it was? Napoleon Dynamite. My God, that was good. Yeah. My God, that was good. My 10-year-old did not understand it.
Really?
Yeah. She just there's certain aspects of him. She's like, he's dumb. I'm like, that's the point.
Yeah.
The point is that it's all dumb.
That's a brilliant movie. My kids, again, we're in Idaho. My kids have all watched it. They love that movie.
Fuck, that movie's funny. Isn't it in Idaho?
It is.
Take place in Idaho?
It's a couple hours outside of Boise. And
God, it's funny.
My youngest boy, Muggsy, can do the entire dance. Jamiroquai, I think, did the music for that. And Canned Heat or whatever that song was. And he can do that entire dance. He did it for a talent show at school one time, which was absolutely brilliant. But
the uncle who wants to
Uncle
time
Rico
machine.
Yeah, Uncle Rico
wants to go back in time to when he was playing football in high school.
I could throw that football over that mountain.
Fucking movie's so funny.
And then the dojo.
Oh my God.
Bow to your sensei. It's just
funny
brilliant,
movie, man.
No,
it's a funny movie.
God, that was funny. Yeah, there he is. Yeah. LaFonda. Remember LaFonda comes out?
LaFonda comes and she turns out to be real.
Yeah. Don't worry, Demoline. You'll find your soulmate one day.
Yeah. And everyone's thinking that LaFonda's fake.
Yeah.
Turns out she's real and they really do love each other. It's a great movie, man.
I caught you a tasty bass. Yeah.
God,
that's no, you're right. Again, there's certain movies I had my boys watch Old School the other day.
That's a great one too.
Yeah, there's some movies I think the kids, boys at a certain age should always watch. I sound like I'm sexist, but you know what I'm going to say. But I got boys, so they should watch these movies. But yeah, Old School's great. Step Brothers.
Isn't it funny that it's sexist if you say there's movies that you think a boy should watch, but it's not sexist if you say there's movies that I think girls should watch?
Yeah, that's true. We got International Women's Day. We just had International Women's Day.
Yeah, because men are all scared.
Yeah, we don't have Men's Day.
We're scared of being called out for being sexist.
Yeah.
We have to be careful.
You have to be careful about everything, right? You got to be. In fact, that's what Emily told me. She dropped me off here.
She said,
careful.
You're talking to Rogan.
Don't say
anything.
No. She loves your show, but she's like, she's worried about me. She's worried about me saying something stupid. And so,
have you taken heat from shit you said on here in the past?
Yes, I have. And a lot of it, but that's fine. You know what?
What's the big one?
Well, you know what? The big one's in sort of a general category where you say that like the far right, they're full of shit, and the far left's full of shit, and then people get upset because they think what I get mostly is, well, if you're in the middle, you don't stand for anything.
That's ridiculous.
Well, that's what you hear mostly is because you say something about how fucked up the far, like the mask burning, like that's fucked up, right? Or you say something stupid about like the far left, not seeing the irony of wanting to ban books, and you're thinking, okay, fine, but then you get called out because you exist somewhere in the center where you're trying to see that there's smart ideas on both sides, and yet people are so angry that they don't want that. Right, and it's like that idea that we were talking about before, where the people who are shining during the pandemic, who love the suffering in a sense, right, who really don't want us to return to a normal because they've actually found this to be a good time for them. And that sounds wrong. I know that sounds wrong. A lot of people, but there are some people who seem to suffer well, right?
Yeah.
And to some degree, there's some people who grieve well. Right, you get those people who they didn't know the person who died, but my God, they're grieving more than anybody else, including immediate family.
Right.
And so, I don't know. I probably don't want to disagree. I'll say something stupid and then I'll get caught out again. But
what do you think of saying that was maybe stupid? Let's talk about this Capitol Hill shit. What did you think about that? Because we haven't talked about that yet. That's happened since the last time I saw you.
Yeah, that's that's a good example of getting called out on shit. I did a show on the 6th, right? It was a news segment where I was talking and I said that President Trump's reaction that day was pathetic. And that's what I said, right? And my point is that a lot of what he did over his 4 years, it was just self-inflicted wounds. It was unnecessary, right? And a lot of the noise was unnecessary. It was because of his personality and the way that he responded, right? Now, I know his base loved that because they felt like, well, that's real, right? And he's really speaking truth to power and he's not part of the swamp and all that. But my point was, look, you can be smart enough as the president of the United States to come out and immediately say, regardless of what's going on, just say, back the fuck off.
Yeah.
Right? This is wrong.
Right.
Don't do it. Right? You can protest, but not violently, and get the fuck out of the Capitol building. Right? And he didn't do that. It was sort of the same thing that he always does, which is it's not a strong statement, and it's a self-inflicted wound. So I said that, and man, did I take some fucking heat, right? From the right side, who's saying, yeah, full of shit.
What people on the right don't think that that's wise? That's what I understand.
It's the people on the farthest spectrum, which again, I go back to the same thing. Yeah.
Now they have to understand that they were wrong.
You would think so, but I think a lot of people don't. A lot of people still think, look, was there fraud in the election? Yes, I believe it, but there's fraud in every election, right? It's the nature of the beast.
That's
right?
what I said was like, do you think that the fraud in the election was zero? No one thinks that.
No.
I mean, how much do you think the fraud was? Do you think the fraud was enough to shift the election one way or the other?
I don't.
I don't think so either.
But I don't know. But I think that if we allow to normalize certain aspects of the electoral system, I think what you're doing. Look, I work in fraud all the time, right? That's what my guys do in my business. That's all they work in fraud. If you allow conditions to create the potential for fraud, then people are going to fill that gap and they're going to rush in and they're going to engage in fraud. So if this is the part that I can't figure out. Everybody should want, right or left, to allow the ability, the easy access to vote for every U.S. citizen. But we should also want to not have people who aren't citizens or whatever. I mean, just to not allow fraud into the system. And so I have a hard time understanding how people can't come together and say, yeah, we want integrity in our electoral system. Do you think any other country allows for a sort of lax, program that says, yeah, we're not going to check and we're just going to we're so keen to show how righteous we are that everybody has easy access to voting that we're not going to check and make sure as a citizen. I guarantee you every other country makes sure that the people voting are citizens of that country if they're given the right to vote, right?
We don't do that?
Well, what I'm saying is there's a potential if we just expand the ability to vote, right, in our desire.
To non-citizens.
Right. Well, no, I'm not even saying non-citizens. What I'm saying is the way that we allow people to vote. If we don't have integrity in ensuring that the vote is coming from a legitimate citizen, right, and the right and the left should want that, right? You want people to be able to vote. Of course you want fucking people to vote. It's like believe science. Of course you believe science, right? But you want everybody to be able to vote, and you want them to be able to do it easily. But you also want to make sure that you're not opening it up in your desire to allow people to vote so that you don't have the ability to check and make sure that there's no fraud. Right. So that doesn't seem to be a heavy lift. Allow easy access to voting for every U.S. citizen, but ensure that the integrity of the system allows you to make sure that you just have U.S. citizens voting for your country's elections. That's what every other country does. And again, it goes back to that thing about sometimes we apologize for it. It's a righteous idea that, I don't know.
Let me ask you this. Instead of like examining all the problems, what could be done to make voting more secure? Like, is it possible to vote online? I mean, I've said, why is it that we can bank online, but we can't vote online?
Yeah. Well, I think if your system, part of the problem, I think, is if your system isn't clearly explainable and transparent. If people can't look at it and go, I see, and the reason why, like in-person voting, right, the day of the election was for so long was, nobody questioned it, was because that's simple, that's transparent. You can look at it and you say, yeah, I get it. That's what happens. It's election day. Everybody go to the voting polls and vote. And so if you're doing it online or there's just unsolicited mail-in ballots, then people can look at that and legitimately go, well, I don't understand it, and so therefore I don't know that it's.
Do you think the mail-in ballots leave more of an opportunity for fraud?
There's a potential. Do I think? I mean, again, I go back to the same thing. Do I think there was enough in this pat? No, there wasn't so much fraud that. But I think.
Do you think there was fraud on both sides? Do you think there's fraud on the Republican side and the Democrat side?
Oh, sure.
So it probably cancels itself out.
Well, I think there's a again, you go back to the human condition. I think if there's an opportunity for fraud, I don't think Republicans are going to be less inclined than Democrats, or Democrats are less inclined than Republicans. I just think it's the way it works. But I think you have to have a transparent, clearly explainable, system that you can look at and go, yes, I get it. That's why. And so I'm a big fan of in-person voting and unsolicited mail-in ballots. No. In the old days, we had absentee ballots, and that was look. We changed the rules to try to accommodate for the pandemic, and that made sense, right? But there has to be an ability for both sides to look at the system and say it's credible because it's clearly explainable and transparent. And I just don't think that's where we're at right now. That's what created this confusion and distrust. And that's a very dangerous thing. And also, then we had outside elements trying to drop in there with their covert action campaigns to seed that inability to believe in the system. So yeah, we better get this nailed down before the next election. Otherwise, we're going to have the same problems.
Yeah, I'm worried that Trump comes back in 2024, and I'm worried that these people that were at the Capitol building get more organized and more emboldened. The only difference is what's really kind of hilarious is these dummies were also anti-maskers. So they all showed up with no mask. I mean, it was like a perfect storm of stupid.
Yeah.
It
It
really
was a perfect
was.
storm of stupid because if you think about it, the facial recognition abilities that we have now.
All they had to do was wear masks.
Yeah.
You fucking idiots. You could wear a mask and you'd be totally justified.
Perfect.
Nobody would ever catch you.
Perfect opportunity to wear a mask and not be identified. Yeah, I know.
And these fucking
I know.
idiots are putting their feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk
Oh,
and
my God.
taking photos.
Yeah. No, that was but then they got to do a hot wash, and we still haven't gotten the results of that yet in terms of the what was the breakdown in all of this? Why was it so difficult to just simply secure the Capitol building, right? And
Well, look at the difference between when the Black Lives Matter protests were there and they had hundreds of security guards surrounding the Capitol building versus this,
Right.
was a pittance.
Right. And what was it? But I think that's an easy thing to do, right? To walk that back and say, okay, let's do an investigation. But the problem is with D.C. is, they seem incapable of doing an investigation into anything, right? It's where good investigations go to die. And yet these sort of things happen all the time. You do a hot wash of some scenario or something that happened. You can do that. But in D.C., because of the dysfunctional nature of that place, I don't think we're going to get any sort of easy answers out of this. But it should be relatively simple. Look, I know some of the people that were, in the Sergeant of Arms office there in Capitol Building and Capitol Police guys. And it shouldn't be difficult to say, what's the timeline? Who talked about security in the days leading up to this? Who requested additional security? Why was it denied? All these things need to be looked at and then explained to the general public in a clear and nonpartisan way. Do I think that's going to happen? No, because it's Washington, D.C.
Do you think that the attack on Capitol Hill in many ways is like what happens when the social media chickens come to roost? That this divide that we've had on social media that is accentuated by algorithms, it emphasizes these echo chambers where people believe the election was stolen. They all communicate with other people to believe, and you're a patriot if you go there. And we're going to get together, patriots. They were calling themselves patriots, violating the law, right?
Right.
Violating the Capitol Hill, storming the gates, killing a cop. And you're calling yourself a patriot.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think the vast majority of those people, right, once they found themselves inside the Capitol building, were probably like, oh,
exactly.
fuck, I'm in
You
the
can see
Capitol
it.
building. And it was like, but you had some of those people who knew exactly what they were doing, and and so they should be punished, of course. But I think that, yes, I think social media played a big role in it. I think Trump himself I know people were saying, well, he called for peaceful protests. Well, yes, but he could have done it in a better way. He could have been more demanding.
He anticipated that they were going to do that. I think he thought they were going to go there and chant and scream like,
of course,
has always happened,
yeah.
and that would be the end of it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Do I think Trump, intended or thought that they were going to storm the Capitol? But of course not.
No, but he did want to incite them to cheer and chant and and let people know on his behalf, like the same that tape that got leaked of him calling up the governor of Georgia and telling them to change the election results and be a patriot, like that kind of shit.
Everything's
disconcerting.
Everything's a problem with his messaging and with his self-inflicted wounds. And look, we talked back in November, right? I think was the last time. Mm-hmm. And I think at that time I said that he's losing the election, and the next important thing was going to be the Georgia Senate runs, right? If you're a Republican, you should be pissed off that he wasn't smart enough to understand that after the election, he should have turned his attention to Georgia and simply said, all you got to do now is you got to focus on Georgia. You got to get out there and vote. You got to do everything possible. He couldn't do that, right? He couldn't do it. Now, look, that doesn't mean I don't like some of the policies of the previous administration, right? You can have disagreements with the person who's in the White House and still like the policies, right? The attitude towards China and the way that we dealt with China. Some of the other things that we were doing. That's great. We don't live in that world now where you can separate and kind of, look and analyze policies from people, right? Now it's like, if you say, look, there were self-inflicted wounds, people go, you're fucked up. You're not a Republican, and you hate the politics. I didn't know. I'm just saying, look, he clearly, through his actions, caused the Republicans to lose Georgia. Right? He could have, from that bully pulpit of his, he could have pushed, and we probably would have won both of those elections in Georgia. Right? But he didn't do that.
How could he have done that? What could he have done?
Simply by shutting up about election fraud and realizing that this is the Democrats. One thing that they do, right? And again, I'm a centrist here, but one of the things that I always thought Democrats do well is they focus on the end result, right? On the game, right? On the game plan. And sometimes Republicans get lost in like principle and theory and the purity of it all, right? And it's like with I don't know. So I think that what he could have done was just immediately pivot after the national election, the presidential election, and said, "Look, we're all disappointed, right? This is not the result that we wanted, but now we have an important task ahead of us, and that is the 2 Senate seats in Georgia. If you like the policies that we've been promoting, and you like the deregulation, or you like the China policy, or whatever it is, focus your attention in Georgia."
But do you think that would have made a difference? Because the people that are on the fence, do you think there's that many people that are on the fence that would have voted Republican but wound up voting Democratic? Because he's...
I don't think they wound up voting Democratic. I think they just stayed home. I think what they did was they sowed this belief in the lack of integrity of the election system, and they probably thought, fuck it, they stole the first one, they're going to steal this one, so I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to protest or whatever it might be. So I think that's where the mistake was. But again, look, what the hell? I hope the Biden administration does a great job. I hope they.
Do you think he's going to make it 4 years?
I hope he does. Yeah, of course he does. I mean,
of course
of course he does. But
you think he's going to make it 4 years?
What am I?
If you had a bet.
If I had a bet.
For last
$100.
We
have a bet.
What's our bet?
We have a bet that I bet that Trump won't come back and run again.
Oh, he's coming back.
Oh, I know.
How much was our bet?
What was it, Jamie? $1,000?
$1,000?
I think it was.
I can't wait to spend that money.
Yeah, I think it was $1,000. I'm just reminding you because I still think I'm going to win.
Spending it right now. He's coming back.
What are you going to spend it on?
Oh, good stuff. All kinds of good stuff.
Good stuff.
I'm going to buy an eagle sculpture.
A big screaming.
He's coming
eagle
back.
Sculpture.
He's coming back.
I don't know. I don't think so. But
what did you think about when they attached in the COVID relief bill 180 days for the CIA to release all the information they have about UFOs? Did you see that?
That's one of the things I love about this.
We can go from
it's
there
like,
to that.
yeah. Oh my God. It's
Yeah,
fantastic.
we can't be taken seriously that way.
Yeah.
best.
No. But I will say this. I tell people this all the time. They say, why is it so entertaining? I say, because he's curious about everything. He's genuinely curious about everything. And it's a good question. Look, I'm happy that when it comes to UFOs, there's a lot of things that the agency needs to keep, off the radar, right? For sources and methods, right? It's a need to know issue. And frankly, again, going back to what's in the U.S. best interest, for that day when China decides to release all of their intel operations and information, then great. Maybe it's time for us to be transparent. But that's not the way the world works.
That's what it is? A lot of it is just secret programs, defense vehicles.
Well, no. What I'm saying is in terms of the UFO thing. A great portion of it is. Yeah, a great portion of it is
50%.
Oh, now the 47% actually, but don't tell anybody I said that. That's well known inside the community. Look, I think it's good because I think it's for the same reason the Pentagon released the information about ATIP, about the Advanced Aeronautical Threat Identification Program. I think it's actually good. There's no reason why we shouldn't, unless you are talking about developmental aircraft as an example, right? Which is important because whether you're talking about hypersonic aircraft or missiles or whatever it is, there's some stuff that needs to be kept off the radar screen because there is a tremendous competition going on right now particularly for things like control of space. That's going to be a huge issue, right?
Yeah.
Because the weaponization of space. For a long time, people were thinking, space, it's a great exploration and it's good for mankind. And frankly, there is a race to figure out how to weaponize space. And so as an example of what we're talking about, the idea of just saying, we're going to open the books as a country and reveal all our information about developmental aircraft as an example, that's the wrong move, right?
But do you think there are any credible stories, whether it's from Commander David Fravor, who saw that Tic Tac vehicle off the coast of San Diego, or whatever video?
Yeah. If I had to point to one, I would say Fravor.
Yeah.
I would say without a doubt, I'd say the one that if I were somebody who's looking for some redemption because I've been beating the drum about UFOs and nobody's ever believed me, they always roll their eyes, I would say the one thing that would give them comfort would be the incident with Commander Fravor and that sighting. That's one that I have yet to see an explanation for that makes any sense.
Well, not only that, they tracked it.
Yeah.
Like there's
and
then also it blocked their radar systems, which is an act of war. It actively jammed radar systems. It's not simple as like they saw something they didn't know what it was. Like they tracked this thing going from I think it was close to 80,000 feet above sea level to one
down. Yeah.
in 1 second.
Yeah. No signs of propulsion.
Yeah.
No heat signatures. Nothing. Right. And it's one of those things you look at and you go, okay. And look, the ATIP program made sense in the sense that, if a nation is out there, if the Chinese are out there or the Russians or whomever, and they're developing a propulsion capability that we don't know about, then, we should have a mechanism within the Pentagon, within the intel community to understand what that is. Let's research it, let's investigate, right? And so oftentimes, they come to a logical conclusion. The Fravor incident, I have yet to see any information that explains it, right? So that to me, and also, as you pointed out, the way that it was tracked, the verification of it from very credible, individuals, that to me is like the prime example.
And they have video footage of this thing too.
Yes,
and then on top of that,
they have gun camera footage. It's incredible.
Yeah, and the Nimitz saying that these things are fairly common, that they're seeing them every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
They were seeing them, and when Fravor's like, "Hey guys, what the fuck is this?" and they're like, "Yeah, you see it?
Yeah,
we've been seeing these things." And
there's no upside for somebody like that, a very well respected, aviator. With great experience, there's no upside for these guys to come forward, right? In fact, there's pressure to not, because it's not necessarily good for your career, right? To come in and say, "I think I saw a UFO," right?
What do you think is going on?
I don't know. We've talked about that before. I'm not,
I'm trying to get the right answer out of you. I keep asking it until you forget what you said before.
Yeah, I know, right? You forgot about the damn bet. I shouldn't have opened my mouth. I know. People will go back to that, though. They would have called me out. If Trump comes back and runs, they would have said, oh, you owe him $1,000.
Can't wait to get that fucking Screaming Eagle in here that I'm going to buy.
Yeah, I'm going to I'll buy it for you with the money, and I'll put a little plaque on there to say where it came from.
Big bronze eagle.
I know,
claws
big.
out.
Oh, God. I've got one. I gave a speech one time up for a Veterans Day event, and it was very kind. They gave me this big eagle. I keep it in my office now. It's fantastic. I keep it in the background when I do news segments from my office, and it's like perched over my shoulder.
Nice.
And you got to have one in here. Anyway, I don't know.
You think about it at all?
Yeah, I do. In the terms of and like I said, with Black Files Declassified coming up, I just got another plug-in. We're going to do an episode.
That's on the Discovery Channel, isn't it?
It is on Discovery Channel, and you know what? You can see the entire first season on Discovery Plus. So I think it's foolish to discount these things because there's so much we don't know, right? So and the idea of thinking that somehow we're the only credible life forms out there, I think is ridiculous. So I think there's a high possibility that that there's yes, I do think that, but at the same time, then I also question sort of the way that's great. If some alien life force with amazing technology that we can't even fathom right now comes to visit us, then what the hell are they doing? Are they just sort of like watching us just for the entertainment value? Or so I'm always puzzled by that part. Like, the idea that, I don't know.
Well, they probably want to observe, but they don't want to interfere.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably, if they're super advanced, they probably realize there's a process that intelligent life goes through where there's stages of their evolutionary development in terms of use of technology, understanding of each other, mitigation of war and conflict, and then ultimately entrance into the Galactic Federation. Right?
I'm on board that. I'm good. I'm good.
That's, if I had to guess, that's what I would think.
I hope we get good
on.
uniforms for the Space Force. Space Force.
Like that one over there, the silver one.
I
Right?
didn't see that.
We wear that when we get high and do shows sometimes.
That's fantastic. It looks like some out of Better Call Saul.
It's
His
from
brother.
Amazon.com. I got it from Amazon.
I've been watching that again. You watch Better Call Saul?
I've never seen it.
You
no.
never? Oh, you should watch it. I'm watching it again a second time around. It's actually really good. It's it's that sort of like
Breaking Bad.
yeah.
Continued.
It's actually very entertaining. It's well written and but yeah, it's Saul's.
It's not as good as that Black File show, though, right?
It's not as good as the Black File show, which the first season's on Discovery Plus. But and we're going to start filming in mid-April, traveling around the country, doing all the
And you are going to cover UFOs.
We are covering UFOs. We got at least
Anything else salacious we could add before we wrap this up?
I think that's about it. Actually, we're getting. I shouldn't say that. This is interesting. We're getting into. We've invested recently in the cannabis business.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. I'm starting to become a believer. I'm not a believer in Bitcoin yet, but I'm a believer in the cannabis business.
Well, it's a fucking giant business. It's like not being a believer in trees.
Yeah.
They're out there.
It's like the Lorax. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. No, it's but we're hitting it from a different direction. We're hitting it from because I've always thought I've done some work, a couple of shows on the problems that are around cannabis in terms of the cash economy, the inability of banking systems to get involved, and all of that. So we're going in on a business that does the is worried about the tax and banking side of things. So it's sort of the intersection of the trade with commerce and pulling it into sort of the legitimate world of commerce.
Well, that's one of the hopes of the Biden administration, that they'll pass some sort of federal law on marijuana, that they'll change it and make it legal, which I think they should.
They should. I think it's time at this point. Look, the horses left the barn, regardless of where anybody thinks about, weed.
Yeah, you don't have to smoke it.
No. But in terms of legitimizing it and getting it out of sort of the cash economy, I think so. Anyway, this business it's backed by Snoop Dogg, actually.
Oh my goodness,
yeah, Casa Verde. So it's So it's a business that is working on that portion of it, and I think it's interesting. It's not like a grower. It's not not the production side, and I think in that regard it makes more sense. But it's sort of an initial foray, and for a guy that came out of the agency, that's an interesting thing.
It is.
Yeah.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you very much.
Open them eyes. Look around. Maybe take a little hit yourself.
That's my wife. Gummies. I was playing golf the other day with a guy who said he had a big bag of gummies.
Oh, that's a dangerous person.
I know, but he said, you want some gummies? And I was like, I'm playing golf, dude. I'm just out here playing golf. And he goes, it's gonna improve your game.
Improves pool. It definitely improves pool. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Smoking pot improves pool tremendously.
There's no way.
100%. I play better.
Do you smoke or just edibles?
I do both.
Yeah.
But when I smoke pot, well, edibles too. My game gets about a ball better. Which,
really?
Yeah, ball better means like if you were playing someone and you're like playing 9 ball, someone would give you the 8 ball if they were a little bit better than you.
Yeah.
I'm like 1 ball better.
Okay.
When I smoke pot, I have a better feel.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of pool players, like high level pool players, like Earl Strickland, one of the best pool players of all time, smokes a lot of weed.
Really? Or at least is it sort of like the halfway? Like what do they call that? What do they call it? Delta 8 or something like that? And so,
yeah. What is that shit, Jamie? You were telling me about that stuff that's legal, right?
Yeah.
What is that
I
stuff?
haven't gone to buy it yet.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's legal though, right? There's some weird. What is it?
It's like a variation or
I think it's called Delta 8
Yeah.
THC.
Delta 9 is what it gets everybody really high.
Right.
Or
But this
we're
is like
used
a
to.
more mild.
Little more mild.
Yeah. And
Weed
it's
light.
and I think it's legal because it's derived from hemp. And I think which is not a controlled substance in most states.
Me and my friend Tommy Jr., whenever we play, when I see him in New York, he plays real good. And whenever we play, we get barbecued first, and then we play. I'm telling you, you play better.
It's better.
Yeah, you play better. You really do.
We play a lot of pool at our house. We got a pool
you?
table downstairs. And the boys are very good at it.
Well, if I lose that $1,000 to you, I know how I'm getting it back.
I'll take you up on that, actually.
Oh,
I'll tell
okay.
you come up and hunt some elk up in Idaho, and we'll play some pool.
Oh, you can play some pool for money?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll play some pool
You better
for
bring
money.
a lot of money.
You better bring that damn eagle, because I'm going to take that eagle from you.
All right, my friend.
Thank you, man.
Always good to see you. Again, your show is coming out. It's out on Discovery Plus. You can get it right now, and the new season starts.
Yeah, it'll start later in the year. We're starting to film in mid-April. Yeah.
All right. Well, always fun. Always
you,
fun.
man.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Mike. Goodbye, everybody.